call this special meeting of the Replenish Big Bear Committee on October 3rd, 2023 at 9 a.m. to order. And Director Mo, can you lead us in the pledge of allegiance, please?
You all please rise and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's the Eisenhower version.
The public forum, public testimony is permitted only on matters listed on the posted agenda. Public comment on items listed on the posted agenda will be taken at the time each item is called for discussion. State law prohibits the agency from taking action on any items not listed on the posted agenda. We don't have any members of the public, so we'll go ahead and go to new business, the Replenish Big Bear update and presentation.
Yes, so we wanted to give you a quick update presentation. This is the one that we've been kind of going around different agencies. We did DWP, we did for
Director Ziegler, Director Nicholson,
Yeah. CSD, and so we wanted to give our committee the same presentation so that way you guys kind of knew what was going around.
I was quite impressed because you provided him with a sandwich.
Good to know.
I didn't know if you wanted a sandwich, I could have.
No, I just,
I mean,
he
breakfast.
noticed and he commented on it. He was a happy camper.
Oh, good. Well, take note. Okay, so.
Maybe it depends on the kind of sandwich.
Um,
All right, so,
didn't ask, but just-
this is the status update on the project. We're gonna go over the benefit resources, program schedule, pilot study, the environmental documentation, the regulatory timeline, grant funding, and then funding and rate collection. We will go, each individual, when we get to these pieces, we'll go through those, right? We're gonna handle this, so. The benefit resources, you guys are, well aware, we're doing 2,200 acre feet. Can't see it behind that little screen, but 2,200 acre feet that is coming into the facility or it's being designed for that. Right now, we do about 2,000 acre feet, but it is ultimately gonna be able to handle that kind of capacity.
Was that increased from 2,000?
It always has, like, our design is always kind of accommodated for growth opportunities. Next slide.
I thought so, but it just seemed like before it said 2,000. I was like, okay.
Yes, it's been saying 2,000. Now we're just kind of designing, thinking, okay,
Could go to 23.
if we're gonna keep this up with, potential growth, this is where we would wanna go. So this is a future piece. We wanna replace, the water that's coming from CSD's well, to support the, Three Spines Pickleback in, Shea Pond. We have an opportunity to pump water over there. There's an existing pipeline. We have to complete about 400 linear feet. But right now, the cost to test the water that we would put in there is about $60,000 a year. We decided we're not going to do that at this point. Someday it may become more relevant. So all of 2,200 acre feet will go into Stampville Marsh. It'll biofilter through Stampville Marsh and eventually biofilter and get into the actual lake itself. There's obviously quite a few benefits to this project, but a lot has to do with habitat in the lake, increased habitat in the lake, elevation, that kind of stuff. There's opportunity to pump water up to the golf course. And so we'll use the existing, or they'll use the existing snowmaking line, pump it up to their holding ponds up there and irrigate the golf course. And they've done it in the past, so you know that they did.
No, would you literally tee off at the bad term at the golf course, or would you send it up to Sand Canyon and then back down again?
So there'll be a T when Wade reconstructs that line, which he's going to do, he's gonna run it through the golf course.
Does he know that?
He does know that. He's well aware of that. Matter of fact, Reggie's meeting with him this week, specifically to talk about those details.
So green lake water would be irrigating the golf course, not our nice clean water that we put in the lake.
Green Lake Park, yes, will irrigate the golf course, that's true. I mean, the actual physical properties of the lake is pretty pristine overall. I mean, I understand this green algae,
Except for the green part, yeah.
the green algae part, but you know, that the overall, the lake is pretty.
Well, considered non-drinkable.
It's not potable. It is not
So you're
potable.
gonna have to put up signs at the golf course?
They will probably have to put up signs at the golf course that it is irrigated with reclaimed water.
But it's not such that they will have to say non-contact, like if you put it at a school ground.
No, this would not require that. This is just an informational.
Less than.
Less than.
Okay.
You know, the other part, the signs that you've seen in that situation is actually when they're reclaiming water, like tertiary water and utilizing that for irrigation purposes or for those kind of things. That's when you get those special signs, no contact, that kind of stuff. This is different water. It's a 20%. It'll be basically 17 to 83% blend with lake water and this water.
When they were making water available here, my father was getting it and he had to put signs so many feet from the house and
Yes.
well about nothing beyond this point.
Yeah, and the spraying in the air and all those things, yeah, that's an issue, and that was the standard at that time, but again, this is a little bit different water because of the mixing properties. Then obviously there's 120 acre feet being made available for the ski resorts to basically provide dust control for their mountain bike park. And so they have an opportunity to take it 120 acre feet, and that's part of the conversation that Reggie's going to have with Wade this week.
Okay, because when I talked to him, he said, I don't need that water. But then you explained how I was getting other water.
How did he explain it?
No, you explained
Yes,
that he was pumping beyond his time limit.
I would have loved to hear, if he was explaining to you, I would have loved to hear his explanation.
You're aware of the connection project with the Forest Service and Big Bear Mountain Resort, right? They're looking to connect and expand the bike park and add more snowmaking equipment and all of that good stuff.
I am aware of that,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
I'm aware that they've been planning that for quite a few years.
Yes.
But getting things through the federal government, I don't know the timeline, but I know that they've been trying to do this for a while. If they actually get it expanded, they will need additional
I think that's why, just to keep it on your radar.
radar for that.
Water.
Yeah, and again, I'm hoping not to become a water purveyor. I don't really want to do that, become a water purveyor, so that's my goal is not to be that person.
Okay.
I'd rather, have an opportunity to sell it to MWD and then have them wield it to whomever they can make a deal with. They still have to put it in their contract though, to make sure that they don't, they provide for those opportunities. Because it can be anybody that's there, and sometimes people get a little funny about water.
But is the potential then there of using the same way you're gonna use the line to get it from the lake up to the top of the summit? That moving across could also be used to get it over to Sand Canyon.
No, they would, to Sand Canyon, yes. So.
But seasonally,
Yes, so, basically on a seasonal basis, when snow, when the ground is ready to take additional infiltration into the ground in Sand Canyon area, they'll start pumping up. And then, have valves that will tee it off and likely Reggie's well there will house a booster pump station so it'll tee off into that booster pump station, and then they'll pump it all the way up to the top of the spraying grounds. That's how that's the plan right now.
how was it determined? Is that an engineering guesstimate that it can handle 500? Or do we know somehow that it can handle that?
No, so Tom Harder and Associates did a study for infiltration, and they determined the infiltration rates on that.
Because originally, I thought we said that 500 would go up to Sand Canyon. Now it's kind of branching off 120 to the golf course, 120 for Bike Park.
That has always been the numbers.
Right,
So 120 in lieu of them pumping out of the ground, 120 would go in there, and so that leaves another 120 acre feet for Reggie to pull out of the groundwater. Okay. And then the additional 380 that we're gonna pump up to Sand Canyon makes up the total 500. That makes
right,
sense.
now we have 120, 120.
That other 120 is in a different location. That is actually over at Bear Mountain, not even part of this aquifer.
But how's the water for the Bike Park?
It doesn't really affect this aquifer. That was always, that's never been water accounted for. I don't know where he's gotten the water. I mean, I know where he's gotten the water in the past. I don't know, but it isn't accounted for in the aquifer itself because it hasn't been pumped out of the aquifer.
But, so the Bike Park is or isn't part of this proposal?
It is part of the proposal, but not part of the 500 acre feet. And not part of what MWD, CSD and DWP are going to get credit for, if that makes sense.
Were you asking about the pipeline? Is that what you were curious about?
Well, I understood the 150 was 380 and 120.
Yeah.
Got that.
Okay.
But now we've got this new one to be,
Yes,
and so, but it's not gonna come out of Sand Canyon, or is it?
I guess maybe
It's
he's
not.
wondering how the pipeline.
it's a different pipeline. They have another pumping system that pumps up the Bear Mountain. No, sorry, I'm sorry, no, sorry, thank you.
Soon to be Bear Mountain, maybe.
But it is considered part of this new water.
It is part of this new water. There has to be like some sort of water balance created, and that's what we're created as a water balance. To know exactly how much is being left in the lake, how much is being pumped out by other sources. And, you know, evaporation and all those other losses that come through.
And when we start off by saying that 2,200 ends up in the lake, then we take back out,
Then we start taking it back out.
but we haven't established a value of the water that's going in the lake.
The dollar value,
Yeah,
you know, there are numbers being thrown around all over the place, right? So we've established a rate for CSD and DWP, right? And those are, again, ballpark figures because we as BBARWA do not want to be a water purveyor. So we'd rather not sell it to DWP and CSD. We'd rather sell it to MWD and have them wheel it over there. And the total, all the funds coming from MWD and have them wheel it around and sell it to where they want to sell it to, and then keep what they need to keep in the lake. The only caveat that we've ever said to them is that they can't sell it down the hill unless there's a certain port that I think there was like 64 acre feet that they're going to sell down the hill to Valley, because this has to do with fills and spills, that area. Other than that amount, we don't really, unless the lake is full, you know, which is 0 to 8 feet.
Yeah.
I don't want them pumping it around and selling it down the hill to just make a bunch of money. If that makes sense. So that was the only caveat that I had placed on that. Again, I haven't thought of everything, but I'm trying to.
it's just that what I'm seeing is it has a value to CSD and DWP, but when it goes in the lake, it doesn't seem to have a value.
Oh, it's gonna have a value. The number that, you know, we have a number that they've been throwing around, so we know that there's a value. I had originally thrown out the value that they were selling it to the ski resort for.
Which
So
is different.
$468 in paper.
It's the same number for everybody.
That's what we are proposing. It's very close to the same number for everybody.
And I imagine that goes over like a lead balloon with MWD.
It's never gone over, I mean, none of that, that price is actually very close to what they were originally proposing to us.
as an acceptable number?
They proposed a number, we were accepting it.
Because I've also heard that, it didn't go very far because they didn't have the money to do that. Yes, no, maybe so.
I mean, I don't know their finances because
Okay.
their website is very cryptic. So it's very difficult to find their actual budget and revenue streams and that kind of stuff. But if you look, they're sitting on a pile of money. That was supposed to build their fish hatchery. They, during the pandemic, right, all the values of the houses went up. They get 1% of that, the money that comes in. And so there is, their overall, funding stream went up quite a bit of money. 1% is, at the time, when I last looked at it, it was about $600,000 a year.
But when you sit down in the sustainability, wearing the sustainability hat, Bear Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency, has that been addressed? Has it been touched, or is it just not yet been?
You mean the dollars with them? Because we're not actually needing, because that's going to O&M. I have kind of tabled that whole conversation because of the reception that I was getting from the GM and the board. I kind of said, I don't think
Warm at best.
yeah, it was warm at best, if not quite cold. Because at one point in time, we were all agreeable to a number, and then the board said, nah, I don't know, you know what I mean? And so.
Because I know it evaporates off, and then you throw extra water in, well, that's the first stuff that's gonna go on.
But that would be, if we throw our water on there and that evaporated off, they would have other water that evaporated off. So what is really the.
So it has its value.
So let's not, we can, those little games that a lot of times people like to play because they think that we're trying to put too much value to the water on them, even though it's gonna run us about $2,500 an acre foot to create. Right, so again, we know that already.
Okay.
It is gonna have value, we're not done with it, but I know that we don't need to settle it now. We probably at a later date would be much more productive. I think they would feel much more willing to
Discuss.
and negotiate, I got permits, I got a project, I got all those things in hand, water's coming your way. What are you willing to contribute towards the project?
Have they ever countered that? Well,
And the same with the city, by the way.
without our storage capacity, you wouldn't have a project, therefore storing up your water in our lake has value, which might even be greater than the value of the water.
The story, they've said that,
Okay,
but remember, they're not the only one that owns lake water, right? Mutual owns lake water. As well.
okay, so it's all kind of still up.
It's all up in there, right? They don't have it, they're not the only game in town, right? I could still put it in there and sell it to Mutual if somehow.
And the theory is that because it comes from a pipe, they can't refuse it.
Who can? MWD. MWD, because it's in the pipe, it's no longer owned by Mutual.
As runoff.
That's right. So BBARWA owns the water, and we can negotiate with whomever we want to sell water.
But they could decline
They
to
could
allow the
decline.
water to flow there,
They could decline.
and then what do we do?
So my plan, you want plan B or C or D or whatever. But yeah, so A would be MWD. Because they are lake managers and it makes sense, right? It makes sense. I mean, they should be managing this water in the lake. B would be probably Mutual. Right?
Let's still putting it in like, I mean.
Yeah,
how
so
else
put it in
can
a
we
lake.
get Mutual?
Okay,
Okay,
just sell it to Mutual instead.
then
They're like,
on down here is no longer an option.
pond out here is no longer an option.
Okay.
And then,
And if all else fails, you can still send it to the alfalfa field.
no, I got a C and a D, like that stuff, but my C would be look for additional places to inject water. Find other places to inject water, right? That would be another, for water sustainability, that would be another option. And then my last resort, I could build a pipeline that goes all the way around the lake, send it down the Santa Ana River and sell it to Valley.
Okay,
But again, I gotta think, like all those pieces, I mean, that's way down on my list, would I really wanna do that? Probably not. It's not my best option. The whole idea is to keep it as part of the lake, otherwise, why am I creating a project, right? It's to keep the water and on the mountain.
okay, but somehow you do have a way to get water to the bicycle park,
I do,
not from Sand Canyon, but from the lake,
from the lake, yes,
so more green water.
which they're doing, right, so
It has a home.
that's all.
And the Forest Service project is, so it's a connection between Bear Mountain and Snow Summit. And
Yes,
it's additional bike park on Bear Mountain. And another ski lift and snowmaking and things like that. Just, you kind of commented, I just wanted to make sure. So it's probably year round, like Snow Summit,
yes,
but who knows how long that will take.
I don't know either, because they talked about it before when I was at the city, probably the last 10 years.
They at least have the project going. They closed public comment last night.
Oh,
So it's moving along,
okay, so maybe there's a real project here.
maybe,
I wasn't sure because they just bought Snow Valley,
yes.
if they overextended themselves. Because,
Too many things in the air.
yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
know, but again, that's, I don't know their financial situation, so I don't know. Everybody seems to be okay with what they're spending, that they're doing, so.
New roof on Snow Valley too.
I saw
Really
that.
not off the agenda, but.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move on. So, obviously, we also know, we just kind of talked about that there's some downstream releases already planned as part of this project. There's some additional opportunities for Valley Water District, we talked about that a little bit. Edison, there's some, I don't know if their hydro station's still working, but if it was, that was the other part, they were shutting it down during certain parts of the year, and this would allow for additional releases to keep that hydroelectric water station going.
The 100-year-old station number 2.
Yes. So they were talking about restoring it, but I don't know.
Are you okay, since it's just a committee meeting, that if there's other members that want to just ask questions?
Yeah.
If you guys have questions as we're going through the slides, you're more than welcome to chime in. So, sure. Okay, there's a lot, so, but basic things, feel free to just chime in.
Yeah, I would say ask the boss. So,
Are there,
We're more flexible.
is this presentation up there?
It is, yeah. If you'd like an agenda or a copy of the presentation, it's all out on the table. Would you like one?
Give it.
That's not the presentation.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
I mean, granted, you can see it up there, but
yeah, it's always nice to have a copy you
Much
can take
easier.
with you, right on it.
I can zoom in.
Surprised there's not more of a show in here.
no.
This is a committee meeting, and so, but historically, strangely enough, people are not that interested into a wastewater plant. And this project is different, but historically, on a normal basis, when it comes to BBARWA itself, it's, you flush it down, it goes away, nobody's, that's cool.
I want to think about it.
Don't want to think about it, so it's gone, and, we give it to that man, and he takes care of it, so.
Thanks, John.
By the way, there's some on the walkway at the front.
It was a welcoming.
Welcome, welcome now.
Are back.
No, this is.
It was like a rodeo.
I hope it's canine.
Yeah,
Probably kind
yeah, so,
We didn't stare.
of. Okay, got it out, okay. We take care.
so this is, so if we, originally started this project way back from 1977 forward, obviously this project would have had an impact on the lake levels, right? We've talked about this a few times in the past. On average, during, you know, during the drought conditions where the lake is really low, the lake would be about 4.5 feet higher. And on average, it's about 1.5 feet, just to kind of give you an idea. So the black line represents what the historic levels were. And then everything's happened exactly the way it continued to happen. And we had started this project, the blue is where we would have ended up during that period. 1970 forward. Just to kind of look at the last, like, say 11 years, I guess, or 10 years, or 8 years.
Do we know roughly like what it would be since we're so high this year? Would we still have an additional 4?
Yeah, we would have about another 1.7 feet higher.
Okay.
So, and this stuff gives you an idea what it would look like the last, it's like 8 years here or so. With the lake level, it kind of moves into that little area. Pretty cool. And that includes, like, I don't, that doesn't include any of the subtractions. If we subtracted the water, I think.
Right. Well, I keep forgetting we have a bigger spread. I guess,
Yes.
the higher we get, so I always forget that math too.
Yes,
Well, we can keep the moat, hopefully the moat, filled around the island.
yes.
It looks so,
But you remember, this is a cone, right? So, right, you do this and your surface area gets bigger,
that surface area.
right? That's the bigger.
Yes, not enough tea yet, so.
Yeah, there you go. And that is the surface area we were talking about. See that dark blue area? So the light blue is what the lake looked like in 2018. And the dark blue area would be the additional surface area that we were talking about. That surface area is, you know, I know it looks, graphically, it looks small, but it's huge, right? The additional acreage is huge.
The funny little, how do I describe it?
Little line.
You want to point
There's a little web.
down
Would you
here?
say that that's no clear up, more in town,
Okay.
closer left,
Boulder
a
Bay.
little bit left, there we go. Is that Canvasback and Mallard Lagoon?
Canvasback and Mallow Lagoon are right in here.
So it is, that's what that funny.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what that is.
Is the constant decline since 2011 mostly due to weather change?
You know, that would be a theory. That would be a theory that it's something, crime, but historically, the lake has filled and spilled. So every 10 years, it's done like a filling and spilling and filling and spilling for historically, yeah, you can see the dips and the ups and downs. But historically, that's the determination by MWD is that it is a cycle, and that's the cycle. That makes
It
sense.
is funny because it does keep going down though. Every 10 years, it's just that little incremental drop.
Well, that was our opinion, but I don't want to draw that because this is MWD's data, and that's what they believe is to be the case. And so I like everybody else believe that it's still trending downwards.
Yeah.
Just like our groundwater levels and that kind of stuff are trending downwards. Yeah.
It's actually, does BWP have anything with the groundwater table levels?
They do, they stayed actually pretty constant even
Okay.
through this drought. But, you know,
I was curious.
but if there are certain wells that are down and certain up, if I remember correctly, and Larry, you may know more about CSDs,
We joined with DWP
okay?
to technically have basically the same water ordinance. So that the bigger lake wasn't washing sidewalks when we weren't, vice versa. The state said we had to go to 5 stages where we had 4 stages before of good, bad, indifferent, disastrous. And at stage 2, I think it's based on the water table being 27, our test wells being 27 feet down. And then at 35, it goes to another, and at those stages, we start kicking in, literally, you only get 150 gallons per person per day in your house. So that ultimately, as the drought gets worse, less is brushed, flushed, and showered out to here. Therefore, production will go down and you'll have less water in this project.
Yeah, there was a time where DWP put into different standards in place,
Then CSD.
and I think it was DWP that did it, then CSD, I'm sorry, yes.
No, but yeah,
And then at one point in time, until Reggie changed it, he couldn't actually provide any construction water for anybody. And had to send them over to CSD to do it, and then
Well,
they changed.
That's when all the work at the airport, I can't think of his name,
Ryan?
the
Ryan?
bowling alley guy.
Oh.
He owned
Oh,
Hot
yes,
Springs, and he was, because I sat there in the genealogy.
Rainbow.
Yes,
Oh.
and the trucks, 10 to 15 a day, were going by, sucking water out of that, Hot Springs
yeah.
to go do the construction work, because neither the CSD nor DWP could provide the water for dust control and compaction. And that's what I wondered is, the study at some point said that water has not been replenished in 50,000 years because it was glacial, yada, yada, yada. Well, the spring didn't go dry. It's still marshy if you go out there and walk around, so, but that's why he was selling water, so nobody else could supply it.
And we've been contacted a few times for water, construction water. We used to have construction water.
And the same kind of thing, but you can't spray it.
Well, I mean, there's methods around that, but you have to chlorinate it or, you know, do that kind of stuff. And
Don't do it, no, we don't do it.
we don't do it unless, you know, unless we do, you know, we would have to chlorinate it and test it to make sure everything was, you know, meeting like a drinking water standard to make that happen.
But we have reached those points at which we have to start shutting off.
Yeah. That makes
And
sense.
then, you know, and then he would have to test and do all that stuff, and he didn't want to do that.
Did that get your question?
Yeah, thank you. I just had another thought. Is there any coordination with building and vacation home versus permanent homes? That's been such a controversy up here. I'm wondering, is there any coordination you thought about the water supply in relationship to legislation on that?
You know, I don't think, in general, I don't think there's not much, as a, you know, as far as BARWA is concerned, as an agency, we can do with that. It's really up to DWP and CSD, put ordinances in place. I know the city's been working hard on different ordinances to curtail those kind of uses. But at the same time, if people were living here full time, you know, I mean, if you think about a third of our homes are occupied full time. Okay, so when we have holidays and people come up and visit and occupy those homes, is it really an impact? Probably, in general, probably is not. Far as water, I mean, they account for about 40% of our flow, just to give you an idea. But most of that recovery is probably supposed to be taken out, recaptured through the homeowner, and the cost to the homeowner for like BARWA or DWP is supposed to be recovered that way. So that's the coordination, but actually restricting it, you know, maybe someday that'll come up, but at this point, that is not to my knowledge in the the city or CSD's, you know, not in their effort at this point.
Because it doesn't have enough impact on the overall.
It probably doesn't, overall. I mean, like I said, 40% of the flow, so I would assume 40% of the flow coming from DWP and CSD is probably coming from those private home rentals as well. But it's not impacting our groundwater. We can still meet our current demand. So at this point, there's no way to, I think it would take us to get to a point where we could meet those demands, you know, our local demands, before they would start putting additional restrictions on stuff like that. They did have a building moratorium way back when, but that was more to Irwin Lake because there was some wells up there that had nitrogen and they couldn't pump out of them, and then fire flow was the other issue up here, and that's when they started at building moratoriums. You can only, I think it was 150 was the number of homes that they could build in a year up here. But right now, we're still sitting on average about 45 to 50 homes per year that are being built up here. Very small amount, you know, we account for about 0.5% of growth on a yearly basis.
The other side of that is something like Maple Ridge. When they come in and want a will serve letter, legally, unless you establish that there is a crisis, you can't deny it. And then we went from 1/3 occupancy to, during the COVID refugees came up, suddenly all these empty cabins were being occupied. And so our superintendent, he has to plan ahead for assuming every one of those houses is occupied. Otherwise, if you don't build a system to handle that, when they suddenly become occupied for some reason, now you've got a problem. But unless you can declare it an emergency, you can't refuse to give those people water. It's kind of a catch situation. So yes, it affects us, but if you own a property and you want to rent it out, you know, what legal justification would we have to say, no, we're not gonna let you use any water because it's a rental?
And do we really want government doing that?
And
Right, do we really want government coming in and telling you how to manage your property, like whether you use it or rent it out? I mean, that's a lot of big brother stuff.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so we'll, again, we've talked about the sustainable yield, a little bit about, pumping up the groundwater. This is a pumping curve that reflects, the black line is actually the sustainable yield for the aquifer. The bottom line, the purple line, is the pumping, anticipated pumping. So going forward, you can see that it increases over time. Eventually, those two lines actually intersect, probably, more towards the 2080 number. Eventually, they'll intersect. And then if we had applied this project and got that 500 acre feet up into the aquifer, you can see that the blue line is where the sustainable yield would increase. So we would, those two lines, the top of that line would not intersect. Would intersect a lot further out, let's put that way. Someday they would.
and that's part of why I say, I don't call this drought proofing.
No,
We may be more resilient, but as things get worse, you get less water to treat, less water comes in here, and so it's a downward spiral.
oh, it's most definitely, and, yeah, well, but again, you're trying to plan the best we can for the next, 50 or so years, and I think we're doing a good job at that.
I don't expect to be around then, but we've got a plan for it.
Yes.
You nor me, I'll be 102 or 103.
But you have a good chance of living that.
The next, and
I
Bridget,
don't know. Not with my
John and
time.
I are gone, we're done. So,
Gotta stop at McDonald's then.
So just a couple project milestones, just to kind of give you an idea. We started this project more in the September 2018, and actually kind of started in 16. When I came on board in 17 is when I picked it up with Reggie, Mike, and Mary, the other GMs in the valley, and we've been kicking it forward. But that's really kind of the kickoff point is that September of 2018. Started applying for grants. We did actually end up with a grant that helped fund this project moving forward. And we submitted our
Report of waste discharge.
thank you, Port of Waste Discharge permit for the MPS in February of 22. And then September of 22, we started our environmental work, and then started the piloting. Planning in October of 22, and in December, the regional board staff confirmed back to us what kind of things that we would need to do to continue with the project.
Okay, and it says confirmed their approach.
Well, we had an approach,
Our
they didn't
approach.
like it, they wanted some more additional equipment to be installed with what we were proposing originally, and they said, well, if you do this, we could probably accept the project.
Okay, and Bridget popped up with the report of water discharge. So that we're not jargoning for people, the NPDES was what?
The National Pollutant Elimination
Discharge
System.
Okay,
So that is the permit to discharge this water to landfills in a village.
So there's one thing, if it's a water body, you're getting an NPDES permit. If it's not a water body, then you're getting a. What?
You mean like flowing water versus a body of water?
What do we have?
WDR,
WDR,
waste discharge.
wage discharge, permit, that's what we use down when we send it down to the CERN, WDR, and if we're going into water body, it goes in MPDS permits.
And in the RFP, there's actually a list of permits in there, and I know that you were asking about permits, there's a list of permits that we do have to do, so we'll talk about
So
it.
we're gonna talk about this. Okay, so
Are you getting much back from the farming, that where the water is?
the farmer, we had a 5-year contract with them, now it's a year-to-year basis. And he plans to continue farming, but just doing winter, because we'll have some amount of water during those peak holiday seasons. We can't clean it all to the standard that we need to put in the lake. So some water will still go down there, and he'll use that to grow off, barley, right? Barley. Great.
That was not for human consumption, if I remember right.
Not for him.
Yes.
Secondary flow will still go down. So we started up the pilot back in February of 23, and we applied for a WIPIA loan in June of 23. The board,
Before you get too far,
Yeah.
don't forget what WIFIA is.
WIPIA is basically it's a water infrastructure
And Finance Innovation Act.
Finance and Innovation Act, which is basically a federal loan through the EPA, low interest loan through the EPA. So we applied for, I think, 62 million originally
But it's
for that loan.
federal funds.
It's federal funds. And so it's based on, I think, the treasury rate at this point. That's what the loan is based off of, or the interest rate. We'll see what happens moving forward, but that's what, we've done that. We got invited to put our application in, and we put our application in. So there's 2 steps. One, you put the project forward, all the project details, the project team,
A letter of interest.
letter of interest. There you go. She that's the way it always is.
It's a lot of information to
Yeah.
remember.
Right, and so we put that in, and then they tell us, yes, you can apply, and that's what we did, is we applied for this loan. And we should, if everything goes right in April, we should be finalizing those loan docs in April.
But there's no guarantee we get 100%. They could come back and say half.
We're not gonna get 100% sure. We applied for 62 million, they already set that money aside for us,
Okay,
right?
that's good.
So that money set aside for us as soon as they say, yes, we like your project. And but we can only fund it we're a disadvantaged community, so we can fund it 80% with federal funds. And that includes grants and loans, so that's why the numbers are what they are. So we can only fund it up to 80%. So we're real cautious with when we get, we'll talk about grants, when we get in Title 16, which is a federal grant, then that means we're gonna be borrowing less money.
And more contributions from county or city, like it'll all start, hopefully taking it down a little bit.
Well, that will bring the number down,
Yes.
but that is more local funding or state funding, that doesn't affect the fund.
It doesn't affect the 62?
It doesn't affect the 60, well, it will affect the
A little,
60, it
yes.
could affect the 62, but we actually need about another 10 million anyways of matching funds
Okay.
that we were gonna float a bond for, so,
So is the WIPIA loan, that's for construction,
yes,
and local contributions are for O&M.
There you go. Thank you.
yes, and that's it, and so O&M includes, debt financing and our actual cost to run the project. Larry, you were gonna say something?
No, good.
Okay, all right, so we'll be bringing the EIR back to the board in January 24th, so.
And the EIR is the Environmental Impact Report.
So we originally had planned, and so we're gonna talk a little bit about this right now. We originally planned to bring that in October. But our attorneys need a little more time to review, to make sure that the document's clear and concise. And so because of that, they said, hey, can you push it forward? And then with all the holidays and all that kind of stuff, we said, we're gonna publish it still, but then we have a 45-day waiting period before the board can adopt the actual document. And so we want to make sure that we give the general public enough time to make comment to the actual document itself. So we're gonna wait and take it to the January 24 meeting. So,
That will be pushed back in kind of timeframes.
no,
Okay.
no, I mean, this is just part of the whole process. The only, there's deadlines in there for us because we have the NEPA has to be completed for us to get the Wakefield loan. The NEPA, which is, yeah.
National Environmental Protection Act.
And that is the federal EIR, basically. It's a federal EIR, it's a secret process. They have to complete it, but they can't complete it without our EIR or draft document being completed.
So they're being done concurrently, but there's a certain part that can only be done after the CEQA, which is the California Environmental Quality Act. That's the draft EIR. That has to be done, and then they can finish the NEPA process.
What she said.
It's a lot of.
It's a lot of acronyms.
Yes.
A lot of patience.
It's-
Yes.
We have, I have noticed, and wasn't just us. Invariably, you have, I'll be politically correct here, Native American interest.
Yes,
And that's not necessarily that we're cutting through burial grounds or anything. It's simply that they are always a concerned party.
They're noted.
Yes.
Yes, it's part of legislation.
yeah, there's new legislation that makes basically blankets, well, most of California, right? And including the Bear Valley. And so anytime you dig or do anything like that, you have to consult with the Native Americans and it's the San Manuel.
It's part of the sequel.
San Manuel Indians, and we have consulted with them. We did talk to them. They had some changing in staff, so we had a little bit of, but now we're back on track. They have provided comments already to our, their section about our EIR. So we have included their comments into our EIR process.
So do we get comments from Ramos's office separate?
If Ramos' office
Is
is,
he no longer president? At one point, he was president of the tribe too.
I don't know who's president of the tribe now, but we have been contacted by the tribe staff.
Okay,
So whoever they take direction from, I don't know anymore. I don't know who that is. But for sure, we have definitely received comments back from them already.
even when we went out and scraped off all the sage on the property along Paradise. Fire hazard, weed abatement, yada, yada, yada. Mary had to go out, our former GM, with somebody from the tribe, and they walked the soil, and this person was picking up things and saying, oh, well, this is significant. So they have a say, still.
Well, I mean, the EIR contains
Opportunity.
having them present during digging process, or any kind of soil disturbances, those kind of things. They have a tribal staff and we have an archaeologist on staff as well during those processes.
And there's even the potential to shut the project down.
Then
Any of what's found.
most of what has been dictated,
Observed. Okay.
Discussed with us is more of a relocate, but really get their direction on how they want to do it.
Keep
So
it happy.
when we haven't, but other agencies in the valley have come across the significant stuff, they have typically just said, okay, move it over here and then rebury it and leave it.
But until that's done, you are at a standstill.
Yeah, they're there telling you to do that, and then we just move over, and then they just move over, but typically it's right on the spot. And we had the same agreement when we put in our solar, we had a similar agreement with them. They actually didn't really have any input, because we never told them, hey, we found anything, because we didn't find it. We weren't doing really a lot of digging from here.
Most of our.
All this goes on in the background constantly.
So, and then we, the NEPA, which is right up there on the top there, that NEPA, will be completed in April, that's when we get to, apply for that. We'll be able to close our Wakefield loan hopefully in April, in May, depending on what happens. Right now, we have a tentative beginning construction in September. And there's reasons for that, I'm gonna go over why, and we can talk. Should I talk about that now?
Well, in February 24 is when we plan on starting the final design, which is the RFP document, the draft RFP document that you have. I say that we start going over that after this presentation, and then we can turn the lights back on.
Okay,
So far,
yes,
do you anticipate, the traditional phrase in the last few years has been supply chain issues?
yes, and that's why we're gonna talk about that in the RFP. Okay, so the pilot study, you're aware of why we did the pilot study, really to demonstrate the fact that we could meet those regulatory requirements. That's why we were doing, this pilot study, the process. We'll bring, I think you heard that we're bringing out the DuPont unit, should be here in the next week or so to hook up the DuPont unit, which is the RO unit. We are we're doing a second round of totes, I think, at the end of this week. Possibly the second round of totes at the end of this week. I mean, there's some update to it, I don't know it, but
Was that anticipated or is that?
you know, the company just wanted, the company being, IDE.
Yes, it was anticipated to do multiple runs of totes, that was in our contract, but we're still kind of trying to figure out what that timeline looks like.
But when they say totes, we're bottling up water and sending it to Israel.
Israel, for testing for the brine, and
Yes.
we'll go over that in the next few slides.
Do you need results from the first set of?
It's still being, they're still
They're
being
still
shipped.
They're being shipped.
Yeah.
They got stuck in New York.
Oh. Does that matter for the water, the actual?
We're not sure.
We're still discussing that with IDE.
Okay.
But it doesn't screw up the water, it doesn't go old, doesn't go bad.
We're still discussing
It
that,
might.
We're still trying to figure that out.
They're figuring it,
which is another reason why there may need to be.
which is good, yeah, that's good. to have.
That's why we got the second set of totes, I think, that's what
Yeah,
they kind of figured, we got a problem. They arranged all this shipping.
was it like TSA said, you know?
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't know how it got to New York, why it got stuck in New York.
Wow,
I don't know, like all that stuff. I mean, they made all the arrangements. We hired them, they did it. They're supposed to do it.
okay. Well, I know John will make them pay for, or he'll negotiate,
Oh, he was none too happy.
I bet.
Especially, it takes 3 days, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about
To fill the
60
totes.
hours, 60 hours, yeah, 60 hours to fill the totes. And here we're doing it again. And yeah, he's not.
And they're still sitting in New York?
I think they've left, but I'm not 100%
Oh,
positive.
my gosh, okay.
So anyway, the pilot is, again, the piloting started, the planning for it started in October 22. We plan to, kind of complete our piloting demonstration by December of this year, and then the final report will be, in, February of 24. And the significance of that is it does have a effect on this and the permits and all those things. Right, we need this pilot study to confirm with the regional board. Before we can apply for actual permits, we need to confirm with the regional board that we can meet the. And the numbers are coming in good. You know, the brine doesn't really have anything to do with meeting those permit requirements. It really only comes down to the stuff that we've already shipped and got, sent to a lab and got the results back for.
Okay, I can find the UF, the RO, the UV, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
DM?
D9 filter.
Oh, okay.
It's the nitrogen filter. So it's really, it's the sand filter that.
And it said up here you had vendor agreements.
But
It says you had vendor agreements in January of this year.
we started that.
That's for all the known processes that all have a historic established, they work, we know it. And so you're kind of At the same time, you're designing the plant, you're also saying how much it's gonna cost us to get this equipment.
Those agreements were just for the pilot equipment.
Yeah, it was just the piloting equipment, this equipment here that we were talking about. Those agreements were just for that. The interesting part is really, I mean, and I won't get into too many details, but just negotiating rental equipment is an unusual piece for public agencies. For whatever reason, it is not a normal thing, and between our attorney, their attorney, my time, the rep's time, and we spent tremendous and our own, and yeah, it was a tremendous undertaking, which is so wild to me. I was like, you guys gotta have a standard out there, man. I mean, I consulted BBA, I said, you have to have a standard.
Well, you're not the only public agency to do this.
Right on. Like, what? And
Okay.
it was so, yeah.
Maybe that'll push them to now have a standard.
Well, now they, I mean, but you know, they, you know, it always comes down to what you want, what they would like. They would like, everybody would like all the liability to be on somebody else. Both the rental companies and the agency, our attorneys would like liability to be on them, and they would like liability to be on us, and you know. Well, what if somebody comes and sticks their finger in a socket on that piece of equipment and they die? Well, you know what I mean? That's the
Who pays
stuff.
for it?
Who pays for that?
Okay. But the processes
Yes,
that you're going to use all have established track records. We're not doing anything unusual,
all established track records,
except maybe the brine.
except for the brine unit, is
Okay.
not in this, everything else has been tried, true, and processed before. So they know how it works, and there's been lots of tests on it before.
And the brine process was
New,
blessed and excused under the Buy American Act. That it's okay because nobody else does it.
we haven't gotten there yet, we haven't got a battle waiver yet. That's what we're talking about, but they do have, and I don't know. I mean, we could always buy the unit. But it really, the only restriction for that is really, I think it was Iran and China, is that right? Russia.
Not our most friendly countries, so
It's not,
it's likely to
not-
get a blessing.
yeah, I don't think that's gonna be an issue.
Okay.
So this process, you're well aware of this process, we're basically building the study, the pilot, we built the pilot to test this whole process. The actual plant will be putting in 2.2 million gallons per day. 2,200 acre feet, that's what it's designed for. But basically from start to finish, it cleans up the water to above drinking water standards. And I can go over each one in more detail, but the sand filter removes basically all the phosphorus and nitrates and organics from the waste stream. That's really because we're not allowed to put any organics into the lake. We know that that's a problem because it promotes growth of noxious weeds. And so that's the reason for this piece of equipment. It's basically like a big pool sand filter.
And what do you do with this goop now that you pulled it out of the water?
Most of it just gets returned back to the plant. Over time, they'll have to,
It's gotta go somewhere.
and most of it's just nutrients that just got returned back to the plant. So eventually, will we have a high concentration? We probably won't, because what we get in is all this rainwater, and then that dilutes all that stuff, and then it gets to a level where we can treat it.
Well, I'm just are we gonna end up with hauling fees for vehicles and people? And
The only hauling fees that we anticipate at this moment that I'm aware of is the brine.
Okay.
Ultrafiltration, this removes the systemic solids, and bacteria. And, you can see that on the lower left-hand side, the treatment train, it cleans the water, goes from this down to that, which is obviously, removes a lot of the stuff. Again, suspended solids, another issue, going to the lake. We pump it out of the ground at 460
Parts per million? or something?
parts per million. And, I think we can put it at 175.
Okay, ultrafiltration is tubes,
Big filters. Tubes.
which have a lifespan of what?
I think these are 10 years.
And then it goes over to reverse osmosis, which probably also has a lifespan,
It has also a lifespan, I think 10 years is that one too.
assuming standard use.
Standard use, wash them out, clean them out, and then replace them. I think you backwash them and clean them with acid and different, chemicals.
And then that goes in the plant, or we have to?
That goes in the plant. So. And this reverse osmosis removes all those, impurities, the salts, the bacteria, the viruses, the pharmaceuticals, and personal care products. And then we top it off with this UV disinfection and this advanced oxidation piece, which any leftover personal care products, any bulk organics, all those kind of things are destroyed by injecting this peroxide. That's what we were using. And then the radicals get excited by the light in the UV disinfection unit. And that kills all the leftover bacteria, basically neutralizes it.
Do you end up with any more goop that has to be put in the system?
So that just goes right back to
Again, the lifespan of?
the lifespan. Well, the light, it's just a light feature. So the lifespan, I don't know the lifespan, the life of the lifespan, but we're talking about, 8 foot in diameter, 17 feet long piece of equipment,
24-hour operation,
24-hour operation.
because
So,
they're treating blood, through the bloodline the same way.
pardon me?
They're treating blood before it leaves the donor center.
Oh, okay, the same way,
It doesn't damage the blood, but hopefully it kills a bunch of cooties.
kills all the goodies.
So hopefully we're looking at a 10-year run before the plant has major service.
Right, we have, built into our capital fund about 350 grand a year for replacement.
Banking it up.
So we'll be taking out 350,000 in a year and putting it into a fund to replace a piece of equipment as things come up.
Under the reverse osmosis with the pharmaceuticals, that's things like people flush all their drugs that they're, it's that kind of stuff, right? I've had that question.
Care products, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that, that goes through, that we also have, there's also bulk organics that, they have, systems like, they have one at Chevron, they have one at near MWD, or any underground storage tanks that were spilled, and that stuff gets pumped into the sewer system and then flows over to us.
Okay. People have.
We have seen a couple of those things that were not originally there, it's supposed to be ND, we've seen, well, where is this coming from? We're looking at that.
Ultimately, everything works great. We test the water before it leaves the plant.
We do,
So if we find that somebody's on a regular basis flushing something unexpected,
we find it,
and it escapes our 4 stages,
it can't. We find water that doesn't meet our discharge standards. We discharge,
then what do you do with it?
then we put it into the holding pond and we ship it down to Lucerne. And let the dirt take care of it. Because we know the dirt, the bio degradation takes care of it over time.
So don't eat the barley.
Don't eat the barley.
You already
You wouldn't eat anyways.
Well, that's how that whole system got started, is the state would not allow trailer to tap. And so
Or you said the words.
you sent it down the back, you grew the alfalfa was eaten by the cattle, we ate the cattle, it's lost its identity, and everyone was happy. So now we could be sending.
The piece that there's no cattle feeding on that.
Not now.
No, I don't know what happened in the past, but that is for anything that is not consumed by human beings. So horses.
Okay,
All day.
and currently we're not eating horses, so.
I mean,
Well, there's.
we've been having quite a few years. They have a humanitarian problem with those things that we're not
But
doing
that's why
that.
you're keeping the outfall line,
Yes,
and you're keeping the property down there,
yes,
And hopefully we keep somebody who wants to keep using the water and
Yes.
building something. Although
And we're modifying our permit.
that, historically, that person can't claim the water as theirs because it wasn't there until we sent it down.
No, historically, they can't claim, right, it wasn't theirs until we sent it down, and we've maintained control over it over time.
So hopefully that does not become an issue.
It's not gonna become an issue. They've already opined on that in the past,
And we've had quite a few meetings with them as well.
or we're having a new one, but
Yeah,
Are the sticklebacks and their maintenance tied into the outfall line or just to tapping wells?
the stickleback have different, they're using different water.
Well, I mean, it's just that, part of the agreement was you want to drill a well or take water out of the forest or the outfall line. Well, you don't get the permit to have that unless you maintain the stickleback, which
Right.
are our friends.
We will still maintain that.
Okay.
Does this change the chemistry of the existing lake water at all?
No, so the maximum that we would ever see in the lake at any time, usually during the low part, when the drought is highest, the maximum we would see about 17% of this water. So it doesn't really affect. The most it does is actually clean, it improves water quality of the lake. That they've already determined that through modeling that, hey, over time, this actually improves the water quality of the lake.
And the fish like it too?
Sure. I mean, if you saw the water, you'd be like, it's above drinking water standards, right? You couldn't open up your tap and put it in the lake, right? But you can put this in the lake. Because the stuff in your tap is too dirty to put in the lake.
Oh.
It gives you an idea. What we're talking about.
Because fish have rights too.
More right.
I think it's a hashtag.
So, basically, just to kind of, this is the brine, we pick that product water coming out of that RO unit, we send it to the brine unit, so about 10% of the water that comes off of that RO goes to that brine unit. There is a 8% water recovery, that's how we get the 98% total recovery, system recovery. The brine itself, pellets will come out of the brine itself, and then whatever doesn't get pelletized, the balance will go into this evaporation pond. And that evaporation pond will dry the leftover 2% of the water.
And the cost to do this pelletization is to reduce what has to be hauled away.
That's correct.
And
The maintenance cost, that costs much more than the
and
piece of equipment.
you worked out those numbers, that's why we're doing.
Oh,
this.
yes.
Okay.
All right, just the environmental doc, which we've kind of talked about already. NOP, notice of preparation was back in December of 22, we filed that. We expect to, like I said, we expect to have it to our board in January of 24. And NEPA to be completed in April of 24. And the program will be begin construction in September of 24, and program to be operating in 27.
Before we get too far,
Yes.
can we back up to page 21? I found our page numbers.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
impressed. It says,
We didn't put that, Larry.
I saw them, even though they were very playable, I found them. Pellet reactor that will produce solid pellets for disposal or reuse.
Yeah.
Where are they gonna get reused?
So we're not sure if there might be a market for like, you know how they salt the roads, that kind of stuff.
Is it literally salt, or is it, you mean salts of certain chemicals?
It's salt and certain chemicals, so we have to see whether the salt
Somebody would allow it.
makeup would be acceptable for some uses.
Because we don't want our roads salted because of the lake. So we'd send it somewhere.
But we already salt our road tanks. Caltrans does it all the time.
They claim it's not table salt, but some other kind that's not as noxious.
Not
That's
as,
not true,
not as.
not as.
It is. but
So
not-
this literally could be used.
We don't know for
Locally.
sure, but there may be an opportunity market. We're still looking into that.
Is it would it be a big quantity?
I don't know the quantity, I would
Yeah.
figure that out. what the
There's
quantity-
probably not.
Well, it'll be another process, someone's got to declare it safe and sane and
Yeah.
non-toxic and.
We'd have to do a bunch of testing and say, okay, can you accept this, that kind of stuff.
So construction potential a year from now. Or less than, like breaking ground,
Well, we're gonna talk about that.
okay.
And the reason why we're making that suggestion, we'll tell you why.
Okay.
So the environmental reviews, scoping meetings, these are the inputs that we got from those environmental, that NLP, the notice of preparation. Came out, people asked about renewable energy, Larry, and, and the need for that property across the way here, Larry.
Oh, yeah, he did.
I'm now on that bandwagon, Larry, I'm on the bandwagon.
Yes, and you've already presented the new general manager with that.
Yeah, I have, he's well aware of it.
It happens that the CSD owns property next door. He wants more solar panels, so he's looking at that. Now, you asked about, are we surprised that only 2 of you showed up? You'll notice over here in the little gray balloon, 3 letters. We have about 22,000 people in the valley.
Yes.
This was only for the scoping meetings, though.
Right,
Those,
but I
we
mean,
have received several comments from.
it's not the most popular topic in the valley.
Well, and it should be, and it will be when I start construction, it will be the most popular, I think it's already probably the most popular topic today. I mean,
Because you offered tacos,
I did,
yes,
that's probably why I maintain that.
so everybody came out to look at the plan and get a free taco.
And get a free taco.
The Forest Service had a good couple of pages of people commenting, so I think people are getting more.
Yeah,
What's
more
what's
aware.
going on. Yes.
I'm just,
Impact a lot bigger.
chance to, but
Yeah,
And it's the biggest project undertaking of the valley
ever,
ever.
Right.
So there we go. I mean, it's I would say the bridge itself was constructed, that was $46 million project, so you can see, dollars, it's a bigger project than that. So, the reduced flow of Lucerne, the 1977 judgment, which has to do with MWD. The consultant Native Americans, the brine impacts, water quality to the lake, and the reduced flow to the Bear Valley, which we've just been talking about all of these things. So,
And all of them will be addressed in the draft environmental impact report.
so MPS milestones, this is a big one for people about this MPS permit, this is the permit to discharge the water in the lake. We submitted that first. And introduced it first to the meeting with the regional board in January of 2019. We submitted our request to them back in February of 22. Got their feedback in December of 22 on where we need to head. This pilot that we've been working on, that needs to be finished, so that way we can go to them with a monitoring plan, the pilot study results, everything that to confirm, yes, we can meet the requirements that you're placing upon us.
now, in the past, I've heard, in terms of the water quality, we can drink things that the fish won't like. So you got fish and game, or whatever they're called now.
Fish and wildlife, yes.
Thank you. And you got Army Corps of Engineers, but you brought up in these comments, a new agency,
A new one.
who is that, another federal?
Which agency are we talking about?
Well, in terms of
Oh,
approving
DPW,
the
Department of Water,
into the lake.
Division of Drinking Water.
Well, that one I've heard of before.
So we have Army Corps of Engineers, we have the Regional Water Quality Control Board,
That's Santa Ana,
that's Santa Ana,
okay.
okay? Well, we also have Colorado as well. But they're all, right, because we have a permit,
Everybody's got a jurisdiction, yes.
right? And then we have AQMP,
Yeah,
yeah. And then we have, Army Corps, Division of Drinking Water,
I don't know, it was,
DPW.
I'll have to go back and look, it was a new one, it's like.
Okay,
where'd
well,
that one come
and
from?
we have all of the permits required listed in here,
Okay, then you guys.
so we'll go over that. But basically, we expect this project, in 25, we'll be able to have a final adoption of order for the permit. If all goes the way we're planning it.
Very good.
And then operation in 27.
Just a suggestion
Yes,
to think about, because I think this is similar to the presentation you made at the emergency team meeting.
yes.
It might be helpful to add a little gray, like the page number, but like last updated. 'Cause I know, I think there.
It's on the very first slide.
I tried to look at it, I didn't see it, so I just missed it.
Well,
Yeah, it's on the very
Okay.
first slide in the right-hand corner, says the date. So we updated this September 25th,
Okay,
right before
you
the,
might want to consider like every page, I know it'd be
because
messy,
new versions.
but because
do
people
come out.
might just take a page from it. So just a thought.
previous comments from the board was not to clutter the page.
I
So
know.
we can do that and maybe gray it out.
Maybe
some
gray it out,
pages.
but it's. But because I'm worried somebody might just take a snapshot of one page and start publishing that at some point.
Especially if they want to make it look that.
Yes. So, or like, and they take something from 3 presentations ago and we're more current than that. I don't know how to fit it, but I saw the footers.
I'll see what I can do. Some of these slides are way more, are busier than others, and so the location of that might change. Maybe I can put it on the bottom of the
Yeah, maybe
logo.
next to the page numbers.
You could actually do the page number and then maybe
You
smaller.
don't have a way of like a watermark that when somebody goes to duplicate it, it pops up with that.
We don't normally do that for our PowerPoint presentations
Okay.
because it becomes hard to read for screen readers
Yeah,
to make them ADA accessible.
Another agency.
But maybe I'll see. I'll see.
Hey, we're compliance kings, right? We gotta comply with everybody.
Well, I
just like
think
you
your
did the budget.
point, and I agree, because that's why I screwed
Yeah,
on stuff as it
thank
comes
you,
up.
I'm sorry.
I know which version I'm looking at.
Yeah, I appreciate your comment, for sure. All right, grants and funding, just to kind of give you an idea, federal funding, we're limited to 25% total project cost, right? We know that already. Since the project total cost right now is 75 million total, 71 million for construction. At this point, we've received 7% in state grants. So far 16% in federal grants, just so you know, they did put out, House 16 put out a call for projects that we're gonna be submitting for, so. Let's hope we get the balance of that 25%, and so we're gonna put in for that.
If you were to be awarded some nice lump sum,
Yeah,
and it took you over the 25%, do they just kick you out and say, sorry, this goes to somebody else, or do they give you a portion?
They reduce the.
they reduced the amount to get the 25%.
Okay, good.
So, 9% federal potential, and then 68% funded, from additional resources, and state grants and that kind of,
And when you say state grant,
yes,
it can't be, it's not Department of Agriculture, what do you call it in the state?
you're talking about,
Anyway, one of those.
yes,
It can't be federal funds that were given to the state to distribute, because
No.
now it's still federal.
if it still has a federal taste to it. Unless
We
we
can't
wash
qualify.
clean somehow, you know,
Going through the machines.
went through the machine somehow, the state machine, and the state's got a machine up there, we already know that, I do all kinds of neat stuff up there. But no, it's gotta be clean state money,
Somehow,
yes.
or county, whatever.
Department of Agriculture,
That's
no, what is it, it was I can see his face, and we've applied several times, because, they do federal funding too, but they do low interest loan, and we're still, anyways, but yes, I know what you're talking about. These are who we've gotten grants from. So far, there's a STAG grant for $1 million. This is the Ovaltine, the million, and this 0.96 million. So basically 1.96 million, almost 2 million, and then we've got state grants for 0.5 and 4.5. We got one award for 1.7 million for Title 16, and then we got another award for 8.2 million for Title 16, 22, total of 16.9 million, all total. And then, like I said, Title 16 was another call for projects we're putting in for,
Okay, and you said Overland
due in December,
was seeking 2.5 for us,
2.5,
and then surprise.
yeah, full federal, right?
Padilla did too.
Yes.
They're both
And that's-
considered community funding requests.
Oh, are they out of the same pot, or
I believe they're out of the same pot.
Oh,
I
okay.
believe they're out of the same pot, so I don't know if
It becomes
one,
less
one
likely.
negates the other, or who, I mean,
Who asked for it first?
I don't know how that's gonna work, we'll have to see whose pot gets funded.
And when you say 75 million versus 71 construction, does the 25% go to the 75 or the 71?
75.
Cool. Okay. Along the idea of with presentation point 2.0 or 3.0. Perhaps, and it could be used for anything, it's not a glossary, what do you call it? when
Yeah,
it's
Like an index of acronyms.
all the, yeah,
yeah,
and that one doesn't have to be necessary, take it out and put it at the last page.
mhm.
Because I was in here, I could find somewhere it was spelled out in other presentations. What does that one mean?
You want to see acronyms? You want to see
No,
acronyms?
I don't.
You wait till the construction drawings are done, you'll be like, wait a minute. Well, wait a minute, these dumb engineers are doing this again.
I'm getting better. I got Jeanette with her finance stuff and her GASBs and all this to get her to,
Gatsby
if
34.
it's said more than once, okay, you want to use your initials, but put it in the document. Having a little trouble with Jerry and Nathan given the sewer stuff because they're used to dealing with these terms. You are used to it,
Yes,
but we don't see it as often, and somebody comes in fresh, it's like, what is all of this?
the jargon.
Yeah, we can add a page. We do it in our GM report, we spell it out every single thing, and that's why it's 6
A
pages.
cheat sheet, they can
Right.
go back.
Yeah, we can definitely add it. I have something I can.
Yeah.
Because I've tried Googling and it's kind of interesting sometimes.
I only have Google.
What it pops up. Oh, no, not that one. Let's go to another.
We're moving on for now, right? We can take care of that. So community funding, obviously, the request that we talked about, that 2.5 million is two of them, obviously, that is upcoming. So we know that now that that's due in actually December of this year. So we're putting working on that now. And then this, we're looking into this clean water state revolving fund, loan and loan forgiveness opportunities. So those are the ones that we're talking about. I know I need another $10 million to kind of offset the 62 and the 25% and 80%. All these numbers, we're trying to stay within those federal guidelines, at the same time, balance the need for the community and the grants and the loans. Because it's also, by the way, federal loans are the same thing when it comes to limitation. We're limited to 80% whole federal funding because of we're a disadvantaged community. But that does include the 25% from grants, and then the balance coming from a federal loan. We'd love to have one loan, but we can't because we need state money, which is why we're talking about state revolving fund.
Okay. Are we a disadvantaged community because of the number of bodies per acre? Or is
No.
it based on tax base?
We're based on based on their map, but based on, and I think it has to do with the per household.
Because I know the city of
income.
Clear Lake has qualified, and it's that agency we can't think of for money because of bodies, even though they got $500,000 cabins up on Castle Glen. They qualify, whereas the CSD doesn't because we have more people per acre. and acres.
Yeah, it's the residents, that's the way, that's why when we look at the department.
But as a
I
whole-
want to say the department of agriculture, but it's not, but anyways,
As a whole.
yes,
This project qualifies for disadvantage, whereas we might not get as much money if we were not COVID proud. True.
But each grant has slightly different requirements to meet that disadvantaged community requirement. So it could be air quality, it could be low income based on school lunches, we've had that before. There's different qualifications that may.
It's also why you need the extra person to handle the finance issues of who gets which money and which we qualify and how we maintain that we are still qualified for this. Now, you got down here forgiveness opportunities.
yes, don't forget this.
How do you find those?
So that through the state revolving fund, there's a loan forgiveness, so they'll look at, like, sometimes it's, a loan and sometimes it's loan forgiveness. So you go and you get your loan from them and then they say, okay, well, you get 20% of this or 25% of this forgiven.
But at the moment, you don't have a guarantee of that. So you have to plan as if you're not getting it.
Right.
And then
Finances reflect that.
Jeanette, which is finance lady for CSD, hates grants. Because of the extra bookkeeping it takes, the separate audits that it takes.
Yes,
So you're gonna have the person here that you're going to bring online. Is going to deal with just these kind of things. Every one of your grants has to have a separate audit or a separate accounting. And has to bring in the figures and present them every year.
no, so the audit that happens typically is at the end of the project, and there's a federal audit at the end of the
So
project.
hopefully it can be cleaned up within a year. or
Like Title
two.
16, right now, there's not much information. My understanding is that we can say, hey, we want to draw $500,000. We don't even have to justify, or I think we put down what it's for, there's not a whole lot of justification for it, oh, backup material and that kind of stuff, then they come in at the end and audit, make sure that why we drew it, why.
Okay.
That's a lot of, well, I mean, you can think, you understand, the federal process is, let's just say stupid,
Well,
because it is.
City of Bell or Hawaiian Gardens, I mean. There's a reason they do this. Kind of auditing,
Yes,
because it does happen. And so we need to keep our record.
right, and I've been through several audits, working for the city, been through several audits, her too.
We're on top of everything.
We know, I mean, we know what it takes to get it done, so we know the mountain we're climbing.
I think you were looking for the California Department of Food and Agriculture. Is that the one?
Yeah.
That's the main. That's the main one I can. find.
Yeah, it's,
The California Department of Food and Agriculture, CDFA.
So it is Department of Agriculture, food and.
yeah, it is, and we've been dealing with a guy, Daniel, here, so is the city, the guy that we were,
Well, as I say, you guys in the city, when you were over there, qualified, whereas we didn't.
right,
It was like.
And there's lots of
And then-
such areas too.
and then when we were trying to, we were trying to get because their traction that they have is a 40-year loan instead of a 30-year loan. Which is nice, because it brings down your rate structure, right, helps the rate structure. And that's what made them attractive, but remember, because only 50% of the valley qualifies for their disadvantaged community piece, we could only they could only fund 50% of the project to them, so it was just like, you guys do. Hey, well, so right now, this is about funding and collections, we'll go through this really kind of quickly. The pre-construction is what we've been dealing with right now. We have that $5.1 million in grants. We did take a debt service out. We took the loan out for $3.4 million, and right now we're just paying interest on that loan. Also, we've had partnering agencies contribute money, and that would be MWD, or BCSD, and of course BBARWA. Capital side of things, so far, our grants that are in progress or expected is $17.3 million. That's what is in progress or expected. We're gonna fund the capital with debt financing, and the debt service will be paid for by the taxpayers.
So when you say debt service, you're not talking just the interest.
We're talking about the actual debt service, so principal and interest.
And
that'll be funded.
RBB at the top of the chart. That's the Replenish Big Bear.
Replenish Big Bear.
So if not another agency, it's us.
That's us. So, then the O&M will be the taxpayers, and could be offset by project beneficiaries, like we talked about MWD and the city, and anybody else,
Which is bill taxpayers.
which is still taxpayers, except that we're looking to get to cap some of the visitor base. Through the city, and through, MWD.
Oh, and
MWD gets some of theirs.
O&M is the operations and maintenance, so basically how much it costs every year to run all of this and to keep it going.
And MWD, it sells lake permits,
documents.
dock permits, all those things that, and that's how some of that visitor base could be captured. And with the city, there's also a visitor base, we're not gonna say the word, opportunity as well.
And we're gonna be
Yes, that's the
discussing
one
it,
that makes Eric's toes curl. when
Yes.
that term up.
and we'll be
Well,
discussing.
actually, the city manager makes his toast.
Yes.
But there is the issue of not only does the city collect
I don't know.
transient occupancy tax, but so does the county. And Rose's supposed to be up on the 16th.
Yes,
And that's the push, and I know, because I've seen the articles. Arrowhead gets some of that money,
yes,
so if they can do it there, that's part of the argument is why can't they do it here? And give some of that money back into keeping, if you don't improve the economy within the valley, you don't get as much tax base, so. But there's no promise, there's no guarantee,
there's no guarantee, but Don had, we spoke to Don several times about this project. This was one of the projects that she put forward to the CEO about, in 24, when they go for the new TOT, this is one of those projects that they put forward that they would like to fund some sort of portion with this, from the TOT.
But she's one of 5 districts, and so she's pushing for her district, whereas the other 4 are
You bet.
pushing for their districts.
You bet. And so we just see how this comes out. Every district might get a little portion of money and they could say, we can allocate it, you pick out what projects you want to allocate towards.
And she doesn't have, discretionary funds, the way I've heard, like you'll hear here in LA that one of the council people. Funded something by taking it out of their discretionary fund. Do our supervisors have such things?
I'm not aware of that piece. I'd have to ask her to see how much discretionary fund.
It's not
I'm
huge
sure.
funds, but
Yeah, I'm sure there is, but remember, what we're looking, us as an agency, what we're looking for is guaranteed money, right?
More permanent.
I can't like lower my rate structure because somebody's decided this year I'm gonna get 100 grand. Can't do that, right?
the other side of that is. We have Mr. Miller on the board representing.
Yes.
The county. And yet. They're not. Contributing. In anywhere near what the CSD and MWD or the DWP. Are being asked to commit that, yeah, we will pay this much for water. It's still a benefit to them, but. I don't know how you're twisting arms.
Well, here's my argument to that area, DWP serves water over there,
Yeah,
so that's probably
that's the closest we're gonna get.
it may not be, but that's probably in the ballpark.
And-
But also our rate structure is gonna go through to them anyways. And if the county doesn't pass it on, which they didn't do this year, then the funds can people, yeah.
But it doesn't come to your pocket to pay for this.
Well, it does, because they're through the rates. It's not additional funding. The TOT would be nice.
Yeah.
Because that's how you tap that visitor base, which is what we're, like I said, it's 40% of our flow, so we should be able to try and tap that visitor base somehow. That's the convincing that I've tried to make to the city and to the county.
Well, and in your reporting. Well, if that was this time, or if it was in the board stuff. We had discussed in the past, during the winter, Big Bear Lake contributes more than the CSD. To planning,
Yes.
but then come summer. It flipped,
Normally it flips to like 50-50 or
This time-
city is more,
it didn't happen,
yeah.
and part of the explanation was maybe that's the soil dewatering after all the snow.
Yes.
Is that still a feasible? I mean, we're kind of late to still be.
No, we still think it's happening, yes.
Okay.
based on the flow rate, we should see, and what we are seeing, we should see about 1.2 million, we're seeing 1.6, so we'll get $400,000 gallons of iodine.
But you could also say that that should also justify trying to find some more percolation grounds to keep this water instead of watch it flow into the lake or flow away, to get it back in.
Or you could say the city should investigate trying to fix that. Yeah,
Well, I don't want to put it all on there because I'm sure it's happening
CSD
out
has,
here too.
has a problem, not as bad as the city does.
Okay.
And we will, going back to the O&M for the city, we are discussing a mid-year budget adjustment, hopefully by December, to see if we can contribute some to this project.
Yeah, but I also hear people saying that they feel the city is subsidizing the CSD on a lot of things. So I'm just,
The city council has come out and unanimously have supported this project. And we've given that direction to, let's discuss this in our mid-year, so that's,
okay, but it's,
I would keep it fire.
it's not guaranteed money.
So, not
Not
guaranteed,
yet.
not yet.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll be able to get something and then get an agreement in place.
Well, and I've even heard the argument that, the ski slopes and the tourism they contribute are not in the city limits. They're on.
They're on federal land, except for the
So-
restaurants and other stuff that are in the side.
So their argument is, well, then that's a county impact. So it comes back out here, it's like.
You know, except the fact that they also are contributing all those sewer lines are in our, you know, in the city's jurisdiction.
Is
The-
management of, what are they called now, Mammoth properties? Bear Mountain, Snow Summit, Snow Valley. Are they coming around to support this? Because in my talks with a certain individual, he says the only reason they're asking is because they want my money. There was not a perception of, well, this is a benefit. You should be paying some. It was anything to avoid it. Is
You
that
know,
changing?
I don't know, I mean, there's always a game to play when it comes to, you know, water like this, water in general, in the valley. If they can get it, you know, some other way, and they don't have to contribute this kind of money to get the water, even though they want to be a good neighbor, should we say, or good stewards. You know, are they gonna cough up money? Is that gonna be a negotiation? I think it's easier for MWD to negotiate that because they, you know, they have agreements already for pumping water, getting water out of the lake. And so for me to say, well, here's the water, you sell it to them if you want to. They had needed water in the past for dust control and those other things for their bike park. Whether they still need that, I don't know.
Okay,
Right.
but if MWD is providing what, the bicycle park issue, I don't need that. But then I find out why he didn't need it was because he was using water he shouldn't have been.
Right.
So now maybe that gets shut off. Okay, if we leave it, that's the purview of the MWD to discuss where that water is going and how they sell it.
Right,
But we're putting the water in the lake for them to sell.
we're putting the water in the lake, period. If they sell it, and that's how they sell the water. And they use that to pay their entire part of their entire bill, that's great.
Well, I take it back to, there is a value to that water,
You bet.
but I don't see them contributing or committing to an MOU the way and DWP and CSD have. I would have thought there should be some kind of contract. I guess you're working on that.
I have submitted a draft contract to them several times.
And it just kind of gets,
And it's kind of like, and I think part of it is, you know, there's a change over at MWD happening right now. You're aware of that, right?
board or management.
Management.
Okay. No,
So, yeah, the general manager has,
perhaps there'll be a different complexion.
yes, he's retiring. And so he's COO. And then there is an interim general manager, they're recruiting for a new GM, and then eventually that GM, whoever they recruit will replace that, and the CEO will eventually go away. His contract is good until 2025. I don't know if they'll make it that long, but his contract is there. He'd like to retire. And that might help change, that might change the complexity of things. Okay, so, many moving parts, as you see. So, RPD race through 2028, construction, starts in,
Fiscal year
fiscal year 2025, and completed in 27. Updated construction is estimated at 71 million, that's just for construction, the design is about 4, right, that's what we think is the design, which we'll be talking about. Funded through long-term rates, priority low interest loans, we talked about that, the Whitfield loans. Annual debt service, is only interest only right now. But principal interest, after construction is completed in 2027. The grants, we're assuming, the current awards and no additional, that's what we have on the books right now, that's how our rate structure is set up. Additional O&M expenses, in 2027, the first one in 2027 is only a partial year, that's why it's only 1.5 million. After the project is fully implemented, we're estimating the O&M, the debt service to be about 3.5 million. And then, the O&M to be 3.5 million, the debt service to be 2.8 million. Given that, you can see the total there is about $5.5 million roughly. Is that right? that's 6.2 million. So, yeah. 6.2 million. 6.3 million.
When you say fiscal year, are you doing start of the year or end of the year?
It's fiscal year starts January 1st.
Yeah, but if
July
it's,
1st.
but if it's fiscal year 23, 24, are you gonna call it 24 or you call it 23?
We call it whatever the end is.
It's the end year,
Yeah.
got it?
It's the end, yeah. And then future CapEx, we talked about that, at $350,000 for any replacement parts. That's included in our budget. And then doesn't include any other outside agencies contributing towards this project. City,
So that's what the term CAPEX refers to?
CapEx, yes. CapEx.
Tomato. Heavily expenditures expected. So it's X is the expenditures.
Expenditures, yes.
I don't remember having
Capital.
seen that before. Is that a new?
It's new to me, yeah.
Oh, CapEx has been around a long time, it's just a
Easy.
generic term, and, probably some dumb engineer came up with it, you know what I mean?
It's easier
We
than saying
abbreviate
the whole thing, yeah.
Yeah, so we can't.
I just don't remember having seen it
Six-
before. It's
six
like, okay,
space.
what's
Usually
that?
it's in our budget presentation.
Okay,
Is it?
I think so.
Okay. It sounds like a space term,
Yes.
like a space launch.
yes. It's another satellite going on.
Pretty much.
There's not a lot to point out in this slide. I mean, you've seen most of this before, except the fact that, obviously the debt service, we're interest only until we're not. And then this is the whole, interest, and O&M doesn't really actually, the O&M is no, not O&M, just the revenues, and then the O&M is down, that's the
Under.
total down here.
Underwater
Yes.
quality monitoring, fiscal year 26. That suddenly balloons. Is there something, is that once we start squeezing water out of plants?
Yeah, squeeze one and put it in the lake.
And then that's just because it's the startup and then it drops to 79,000 next year,
There's, the first year, normally there is,
50 grand difference, so I just,
yeah, there's testing on, I think it goes from monthly to quarterly after that, first year,
okay.
after the first year.
Okay. I may be just forgetting, what's our projected time frame to actually pay off, like the lithium loans and all of that?
30 years.
Okay.
That's,
This for which,
The payoff, like to be done,
it's a 30-year long.
that 30 years.
by which time the whole plant's decrepit and we have to start all over?
No, because you
Because you're
remember, this is a
replacing.
plant, you start just replacing parts over time.
Yeah. No, I think, didn't we estimate the lifespan to be? Oh, I don't want to quote numbers, It was pretty long term.
Yeah, it's a long-term project, so you'll start, and they may come up with better technology, will replace a part of this, or come in with a whole piece of equipment over time,
Or a
So-
miracle occurs and all new equipment just suddenly is obsolete and this one process doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, could happen,
It's for the next year.
yeah, that's for the next GM. That's beyond my time frame here. Let's see, so, just given the current, revenue requirements, basically, it's the revenue requirement for this year and moving forward, you can see at the end of the project, the revenue requirement is $294.39 per EDU. To kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at moving forward,
Okay,
not per year, I mean, that's per year, not per month.
thank God. I don't recall us doing a 218.
Prop 218, so CSD and the city did a Prop 218 vote.
But,
We do.
BBARWA is now, does not need to, we're a wholesaler.
okay, and that's because it was a tax increase or a fee increase?
Taxes, we're not a tax, we're a fee, right, it's service.
Right. Because it's not based on the value of your property, it's, everybody gets slammed with an equal.
The equal amount.
opportunity. Okay. And the PUC never gets involved?
PUC never gets involved, that's
This
like
is not-
water rates, that kind of stuff, because again,
Oh, it's kind of water,
but again, we're
That's
not,
not-
we're it's we're not again, this is a fee for service.
And the 218s were done through the
See it,
other
through the
agencies.
member agencies.
Because I want to make sure when somebody says, we never voted on this, we never approved this, nobody asked.
Well,
Then I can say, but there was.
you had two people come to your meeting for the Prop 218 for our rate structure?
Maybe,
And you guys had 28 total, but most of those were, I think 15 of them were one individual.
one property owner,
One
Yeah.
property.
okay,
So we had 30 total,
out of
out of 25,370
parcels.
EDUs. 30 EDUs, so that
Okay,
is,
but then
that's about, what, 0.8%?
then that doesn't apply to empty parcels.
This rate doesn't apply to empty parcels either. Right, those are fixed fee for.
So if I have an empty lot,
Yes,
I can't protest it unless I own something where I'm paying. There's no standby.
the standby fee is on the city's Prop 218,
And
there's a
well,
stop,
we've rolled it in the CSD, it's now rolled into,
right,
instead of separating it out, it's part of it.
so.
But again.
I imagine you get a Prop 218, if you have a vacant property, you get a Prop 218, you could complain about the rates. And probably you could complain, period, whether
You
you
can complain, but whether it has any,
whether it actually has any merit or counts towards that. Say that, you need 50 plus 1% to vote
because we
against it.
know we have certain people who will always come out of the woodwork. And say we were hiding things, we're doing this behind the back, you, didn't follow protocol. The same person who collects a lot of public records.
Yes, we know.
That's the kind that I'm trying to, I wanna make sure because I get the phone calls. That I can say,
That's your number?
that's public, I must be on speed dial.
Sorry.
So it's a case that he has every right to ask, and so I wanna make sure. That when I respond to him. I'm giving the right information, because then that only aggravates things, if I say one thing and you say something else, I'll get another phone call.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
All right, so the future revenue requirement, I talked about that, we need contingency funds, 2 months of operations expenses, that's basically our policy. Emergency fund, $500,000, we don't know if that's gonna be enough, we were talking about, actually, borrow right now is the same policy of $500,000, I don't know how it's developed, this year before I got here. Do I think that's enough for a plant that's probably worth, $300 million? Probably not.
Well, you found out in the last year that suddenly your discretionary fund gets hit hard because of a number of things, and all of a sudden, where else do you get the money?
Right.
Okay.
So we're gonna have that discussion about that emergency fund. Christine and I have been talking about this for a little bit now, saying, is that enough money? Probably not. It has to be either, either a flat number or based on some sort of percentage.
Right.
Well,
I don't know what CSDs is, but
Bear Valley Groundwater Basin. Bear Valley Basin Groundwater, whatever it's called, that whole agency.
GSA,
Another acronym.
They are not the ones operating, it's you, BARWA, that's operating this. So does that mean the 500,000 is by implication, since BARWA operates over here and does that, now this Replenish Big Bear is another project. Does that automatically default, or do you need a new policy statement
we probably need a new policy.
through BARWA?
Yes.
Board?
Because GSA doesn't have anything to do with this at all, except for the fact that it benefits,
It's doing to make them compliant with the state.
yeah, it benefits it benefits the groundwater sustainability of the valley, but it really doesn't have anything to do with this project itself, other than that. The dollars come from BARWA, the rates come from BARWA's rate structure, aside from any other contributing partners.
Well, CSD does it policy wise as a portion of operations. And is that where your 500,000 came from? It was a portion of this BARWA's operations, or it's just a magic number?
I think it's a swag.
Yeah, okay,
You know what a swag is?
yes.
That's what I
Another
think.
technical term.
I didn't ask.
You don't have to.
That's
Well,
what
that's
I
good.
figured.
I don't know where it came
So it's a case of you bringing the policy to the board.
I have to bring a new policy to the board once I figure out, when I come up, I'll probably look at other agencies, what their policies are, talk to the BB&K, what's legal, right?
Will this mess up your 5-year projection about what you're gonna need, because you might need to boost that number, therefore the 5-year plan needs a boost.
It could, but again, I would probably phase it in over time and just start putting, $25,000, $50,000 away every year until I got up to one where I got, I'm already gonna have $1 million. Do I need 2? Do I need 3? Do I need 5? I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's the same thing. I will get questions about, why do you have so much money in the bank?
Right,
Well, because things happen. And, when the state says we have to buy electric trash trucks at $500,000 a piece.
or we have an earthquake and I've got to repair.
Oh,
That's my biggest
we
thing.
already had one, we won't have another one for 250 years.
Good job. I appreciate you predicting that.
That's part of the work. Yes.
Well, we can talk right here. Let's find one up here.
And that is something I try to remind, Big Bear had one. And then 7 days later, we had another one. It happens, you have to plan for that, or a fire sweeps through. you
Fire
just close
sweeps
your equipment.
We have a pipe that comes up that needs to be replaced.
20-year-old pipe.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
That
Okay,
percentage would make sense.
I'm trying to get.
Yeah, some sort of protection. I mean, when you think we're gonna go to probably right now, we're at a $5.5 million budget.
Yeah.
That's what our budget is right now for BARWA, about $5.5 million,
Okay,
right?
I thought it was more than that, but okay.
No, that's it. Is it,
6.2?
is that what it is? No, the budget for this is 6.2, but our budget, okay, well, tell me what it is, because I keep using that number and I shouldn't be.
I was, 6.2 was at the top of my head, but I could be. there's
Well, that's why I'm
three
checking in, because
Yeah.
they'll say, oh, but so-and-so said something.
We're gonna be at another, we're gonna add another 6.2, I mean, let's assume that it's somewhere in that $12 million range, that's where we're gonna be, we're doubling our budget. Right, that's what
Yes.
and in general, and again, there's still to be,
But we're
Figure it
no
out.
longer pumping 2,000 acre feet down the back every year and pulling the plug on the valve, which is what was
That's
said 40
really
years
where we're
ago.
at.
Okay,
All right, so, and then debt service, you know, we have to, we also have to hand the next 12 months, that's a part of the requirements. And then we need to maintain 1.6 debt service coverage. Talked about that too, to maintain our S&P 500 commercial grade rating. And then,
when you do that, you gotta have that right away
yes,
to make the loan.
I have to have 12 months on hand the day I start the project up. For the next 12
Or you
months.
won't get the loan.
I don't know if I won't get the loan, but I won't get the loan.
You might
I,
give you
I don't think I,
No, I mean, you can't get the loan because they're gonna say, no, you have to have this much money in the bank.
I have to show on my books that I have,
How are you gonna do it?
that I have that money in the account ready to rock. That the day I start up.
Because they're hoping that you're solvent enough to pay off their payments for the next.
I just have to have the next 12 months in place, just in case, you know, the board does something wild and says, you know, let's say we're reducing rates by 50%.
Oh, God, no.
Right.
Yeah.
You just never know, right?
Well, CSD went for like 6 years, didn't raise the rates.
Well, increasing the
Exhausting
rates would be one thing, decreasing the rates would be another, right? We've seen weird things. All right, and then, of course, the CapEx for the next 12 months, and then future portions available for future CapEx. We talked about this is that debt service coverage, you know why we have the 4.4, we have money on hand right now, based on our debt, the loan we took, and
Just waiting for John.
Oh, okay,
obviously, and then over time, you know, as we start to spend money, the debt service coverage goes down, and we start to take on more debt.
okay, I don't see it here, but our guests might like to know, what's our current rating?
For the SAD,
Not solvency, but yeah, our credit rating.
A minus. Which is good, actually.
What do we do to get an A minus instead of an A?
Well, it's not the same as your grades in school.
Yeah, A minus
A minus
is,
is pretty good.
A minus is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic
I
grade.
remember that one, somebody else. Okay,
Yes, it is, you know, it is more one of those unusual ratings for a public agency. It's at a higher level,
well, but that's before we started borrowing 50 million,
62 million,
or
yes,
thereabouts, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so
I
for
agree.
now, we look very good to anybody who looks at our sheets and says, oh yeah, they're solid though.
And a lot has to do with, you know, like, yes, how much you owe, but.
Or don't.
Or don't, and the other part has to do with how much your rate structure is supported. And showing that you're supporting that rate
Okay,
structure, right, so
Right.
I wouldn't expect I mean, to my understanding of the way I wouldn't expect our rating level to drop much at all, because we're putting in the rates to support that debt financing.
And if we had not avoided a federal shutdown, or in the next 45 days, we go through this again. Other than federal loans that we're hoping for money to flow through, does that affect us for any appreciable time?
The only thing I could see is that, probably not, but the only thing I could see is, you know, I don't know, like, it's the EPA that we're dealing with, so are they on furlough? That would be the
Well,
only
and if
thing.
we're expecting to get $2.5 million, suddenly the government shuts down, well,
That's already, so that's budgeted, done, once we get that money. But that piece, you're talking about the next community loan community
Funding
Number?
request.
funding request,
Okay.
that would delay that, yes. For sure.
But we can't start drawing down on those funds until the CEQA and NEPA process is completed anyways.
and all of the grants we've gotten are at the point at which we are 100% sure we will get it. We may not have tapped those funds yet, but
No,
sure,
we're starting at that, Route 16.
other than Overnolte and Padilla,
No, we're starting at,
we're sure of the funds, the grants we've gotten. There's
Yeah.
no,
All the ones that are awarded, yes.
16.
yes, we already drew on the state grants already. We've already drawn on that money, and Title 16, we're starting to draw now.
well, because I see on the charts where it'll say, kind of like in process
Yeah,
and expected. So,
those are all, we're drawing on the Title 16 now.
so hopefully, nobody in the federal government can screw this up.
It's the federal government, they can screw it all up.
Okay,
They're good at that,
thank you for that, Monica.
yes.
Yes.
But at this point, we have award letters, we're drawing cash from those accounts, that the money's sitting there. Well, could they defund those?
I'm
You
kind of
know,
worried.
the government can do anything they want, right?
I don't want you to start construction and then suddenly,
But
boom, it stops.
I mean, the money's been set aside, those are old,
Then they're done.
budgets.
Hold on.
Budgets that are done, and so the money's been already allocated and it sits there in an account, collecting interest for them until we draw on it.
Okay,
All right, so, and, you know, this is just to provide on a monthly basis that we were talking about, just in case anybody was unclear about what a monthly basis this would cost. And that includes both BARWA's, regular rate and, the Replenish Big Bear rate on a monthly basis.
I think this is probably the most important slide for people out of that.
So we did get here.
Yes, yeah.
well, although it's painful.
It's fine,
And I-
it's in the.
Yeah, and I know you don't have any questions at all. So, do we have any questions?
More for you guys.
Well, I just want to thank you for including us and letting us have questions on
You bet.
such important stuff that we worked hours and hours and on. So this might be, I hope not a waste of time, but it would be nice for me to know who you guys are.
Oh,
Your roles. The other thing that made me curious is just the organizational tree, like where does Replenish Big Bear lie in this whole big
Scheme.
organization? That might have been nice to me.
okay, yeah, I mean, I'm the general manager, so I basically am in charge of the agency. I work for the board, who's in charge of, basically, I work for them. And then everybody else works for me. So everybody below, works for me, including Bridget, I really work with her. Don't tell anybody that. In a lot of ways, you can see that already. But, so we're in charge of the project. It is a project of BARWA, right? So just kind of give you an idea, our organization is really in charge of the wastewater. So the water that comes into our agency, we're in charge of that and how to dispose of it, do all those kind of things. And this is a project that we've taken on to, it's more like a more expensive method of disposal of the wastewater. That's really the key to this whole thing is, and we want to keep water on the mountain because we know it's the only other opportunity we have to get another source of water in the mountain.
We have no pipelines, we have no contract with the state. We are totally dependent on what we've got right here.
Our project request is coming anyways, regardless if we're doing this or not. We're gonna have sustainability.
Yeah, the water sustainability is gonna become a requirement anyways in California. We already know that. We already know that at some point in time, we're gonna keep pumping this water down the hill. If we didn't do this project, we would do a version of this project anyways, because they already have looked at us and started looking at us like, hey, can you keep, putting secondary effluent down in the Cern Valley?
Well, didn't you say that no one else is allowed to?
There are a few in the entire state, but not many.
And then just to mess with it. You know what BARWA is, what it stands for? Okay, Big Bear Area Regional Wastewater Agency. It's a joint powers, 2 from the CSB, 2 from the city of Big Bear Lake DWP, 1 from the county. And it's a result of 1974.
1974
Wastewater Commission.
wastewater commission that,
We used to be able to have, septic tanks, leach lines. And then the state came down and said, you can't do that anymore, you stand to contaminate your groundwater.
right,
I grew up here, we had a septic tank on 5 acres, and we were told we couldn't have it anymore. And we had our own well. So the plant got built in 77, 4.
So it actually started in the sixties, right?
CFD had
CFD
mini plans.
had a mini plant, right? And then it was actually completed 74, we got this agreement 77, it's
Where's the
completed.
picture? Set up? Oh, there's it there. Where'd the picture go? Showing the building.
The original?
It's gone.
The plan.
Oh, yeah.
So. Where the island is now, out in the swamps,
Do you know Stanton?
marsh, thank you. The island that was built for the migrating birds and everything to keep the coyotes from eating them. That soil used to be closer to the boulevard, and it was called Baker Pond, because that was a sewer settling system. So,
Baker King's come.
it's not, no.
I see bigger down the hill.
And so, yeah, to bring the valley into compliance, all this started working. And sometimes a question that comes up, and I want to make sure you understand, no, board members do not get a discount. When we vote on these rates, we end up paying them too.
Oh, darn it.
It's the same rates, I put it, we all get the same rates. Doesn't really matter whether board members, employees, there's no discounts for a public agency, so we have to live and die by their standards. Yeah.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Bridget Burton. I'm the Administrative Services Manager and the Board Secretary. And so like Larry was saying, we actually have 3 member agencies. So those are our customers. We have 3. The City of Big Bear Lake, Big Bear City Community Services District, and then the County Service Area 53B, which is Fonskin. This particular meeting is just with our Replenish Big Bear Committee, which is only 2 of our 5-member board.
One city, one.
Yes, so I represent the city of Big Bear Lake. I've been at Moat. I was elected to city council for the city of Big Bear Lake, and I also serve on BARWA as a board director for 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years now. So, and this is a pet project. We heard about it when we first moved up to Big Bear 6.5 years ago. They were like, Replenish is coming, and I'm like, when? So I'm very happy to help in there. This is an amazing team. You can't get better experts than this. So they are my go-to with questions and just everything to make this happen.
And staff writes us reports. They don't do it for their health. And they give us, even for regular meetings, a board packet. So it is our job to read those, to try and anticipate and ask questions, to make sure we understand, hopefully, what they're doing. And so we can answer questions from the public. But if you call and talk to a board member, we have to be sure and caution you that we are not speaking for the board when we talk to you, unless the board has said it. You've done presentations at Sherlock Property Owners Association. I try to make every meeting, but when they ask questions, I'm not authorized to speak for the CSD board. But at least I should be able to say, this is what I understand. If you have any questions, talk to the general manager of the CSD, city manager, or Mr. Lawrence here as the general manager, or now we're gonna have 2 different managers.
Or,
Well, you're gonna be husbanding the project along while Bridget handles day-to-day here.
I mean, it's gonna be the same.
The same general manager.
Same general manager, same concept. The only thing is some of those day-to-day operation pieces will.
And when a board member for whoever says, well, I'm not sure about that, you should talk to, we maybe have the last thing we heard, and maybe there's gonna change, or we're not real sure about some of this, rather than put information out there to confuse you and make it look like we're doing the Texas slide dance here. It's sometimes, go back to whoever has the latest information, and they're the best ones to ask. It's their day-to-day problem.
Would you like to tell them who you are?
Oh, well, I'm on the CSD board. I'm one of the 5 up there,
There you
and we volunteered
volunteer.
to do this committee.
Oh, yes, for this committee.
You're voluntold.
We're voluntold, we like that.
Yeah.
We're-
So that we drill down, it's like having subcommittees. You'll have one for finance, and they drill down more on the line for line, so that then we can go back to the board and say, well, the committee's recommendation is that you adopt this rate study, rate schedule. Or in this case, okay, we've heard another presentation. This is what, because when this started, there was gonna be water sent to the stickleback. Yeah, because you have to preserve the little buggers. And it's costly. We're pumping drinking water into that pond. Well, that changed because that's 60 grand a year to test the water. Maybe that's not such a good idea. So the CSD is gonna keep pumping drinking water, but now maybe it'll go up to the bike park or to the golf course. There is somewhere to send this money, yeah, well, it's money.
Yeah.
Send this water, rather than send it down the back. Again, it's our table, the only way we replenish any of this is snow, rain, hail, sleet, dark at night, and all that stuff. So it's important, it's costly, but the alternative is, if you have no water, it suddenly becomes at any price, where do you find it? So we're trying to anticipate now, 10 years ago even, when they talked about doing the purple.
Yeah, that project was 2005.
And it started out.
And actually, if you look at our original formation documents in 1974, they thought about projects, a project with reclaimed water. They didn't know exactly what it was gonna look like, but they did think about a project. And this is kind of more into a project like this.
And the longer you wait, the more expensive it gets.
Yeah.
You've told us that you figure within 10 years, you'd have to go to, it's not tertiary, quaternary,
Tertiary treatment with possibly some disinfection.
at the cost of 40.
30 million, about 30 million today. So 10 years from now, I would probably 45.
So even if we didn't do this project, we're looking at, instead of 75 million, 30 or more. And every year you wait, the purple pipe project started out at like 8 and we got up to 31, and that's when everybody said, no, we're not.
And if we needed to go down the hill with, go down the well, the hill with water, still doesn't benefit the valley. Well,
And I would just offer, if you do have additional questions, or you want to get in touch with one of us, if you don't mind, contact Bridget, and she has all of our contact information, and she can.
Well, we're on the website, aren't we?
You guys are both on the website with your email, yes.
If they.
Yeah, so we still have one more.
yeah,
piece. Well, it's not,
There's
it's
one
not,
little, one more quick question.
yes,
Just on the issue of water ratepayer funding. I read in Grizzly a complaint from a local resident that lakefront property owners were disproportionately benefited from this project.
This project,
And yet, the water ratepayers, it's across the board, whether you're on the lakefront or not. I don't know if there's a mechanism or a consideration, other than your property values.
yeah, property goes values, also, the one, there's a method to capture some of that. And the method that, if you own lakefront property, typically you have access to a dock. And the dock fees will be going up based on this project. So there is some way to capture, but that's one of the ways to do it. The other thing is there an overall value to the project in the valley? And I think there is, right? We know that the more the lake level comes up, the more boats come up, more people come up, and visitors come up and stay. So that increases the overall value of the property, increases the flow of money into the valley, increases job opportunities. So it does have a trickle down effect to everybody. The lakefront property owners, instead of beachfront property, they got lakefront property. That's a good thing, right? For them and the property value, but that brings the property values of the entire valley up, right? That's what it does. I don't know if it's disproportionate, can't really say that. Our fee for service is based on the number of EDUs you have. So if you're a single family resident, you get charged 1 EDU. That's really all we can do. We don't have a mechanism, a legal mechanism to even do something different. It's not actually legal, because we've already consulted our legal team. And it's actually not even legal to disproportionately assess more cost to a lakefront property, because the idea is it would have to be a sole benefit for them, and it's not a sole benefit, because everybody has access to the lake. But it is not a sole benefit to them, and that's why the legal team said you can't do it that way.
Is in this documentation, indicating where the equipment for all this is gonna be located?
Yes, yeah, we have, there is in the EIR too, that's gonna be coming out, later on this month,
Next month.
later on next month. If she does that.
Are you,
Yes,
are you gonna have another Taco Tuesday, or can they come out and ask for a tour?
Sure.
they can ask for it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's probably one of the best run and most efficient processes.
And the best
So-
way to tour the plant is when it's cold.
And we only have a few, we only have a few, like another 2 months or so before pilot is going away. Some of the equipment's already gone, so the sand filter's already gone, but we're gonna keep, several pieces of equipment to pilot one more, RO reverse osmosis unit. So if you like it for it,
You know, lighting thing?
yeah,
We can't have all these on our grounds.
we're not allowed.
Yeah.
You would also see how few employees there really are here.
Yeah, the 15 people we have actually total working here, so.
Thank you. Because
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
Did you say there was more you wanted? to
Yes,
say?
we do have more to discuss. Did you want to take a 5-minute break?
I actually would, that'd be nice.
We've gotten appointments.
Oh, yes.
Thank you very much.
We are,
Well, this. morning was like that. Total darkness.
yes.
Are you still in generator, or are you back?
I think we're still on generator.
Gracious.
I think we're still on generator. I mean, normally things flicker when we see switch over. We can-
Supposed to be all day to 6 o'clock.
So, so Bridget and I have working on this for a couple of weeks now. We needed to put together the, request for proposal. The, attorneys had come back and said, hey, look, you know, we can't do the design build concept, we have to do design bid build. And so that's what this is basically, an RFP for design services. You kind of have to keep this piece, you know, basically when you put together an RFP for a project like this, you really need to kind of get the parameters that you're going to need the project to perform like. Give them, you know, timelines and the project parameters that they need to meet. So that's what this is, that's what this covers, is all those project parameters and timelines. Obviously, it's a pretty solid draft.
No, it's amazing from what I've looked at quickly.
Yeah, we've gone through it pretty with a fine tooth comb,
Mhm.
and then, you know, Bridget goes through it again and finds something else. But really, the end date is where we're at, because that gives them an idea of where where the design team has to perform like
Mhm.
to meet those deadlines. You know, when we were talking about September 24 starting construction, what I was really talking about, and I don't recall what page it's on, it's where we talk about the packages. It is,
Page 7. No, that doesn't have.
No.
No.
It's
Uh,
page 15.
yeah, 15. So basically, we are, to make this project come off and start construction in September of 24, there are a couple things like. We know the RO unit is going to be, one of those long lead items. So we want the design consultant to come up with different packages that they know are gonna be long lead items and make those suggestions. So we have, you know, there'll be several different packages, we know RO units, this UV disinfection unit, those kind of pieces will probably go out to bid first. And we'll put a package out and bid those, and then, or the design team will put a package together, we'll bid it. and we'll procure those pieces of the puzzle. So that way, we're, anything that's long lead, and we're not stuck behind the 8 ball because we missed a, you know, a valve or anything that was long lead, we're gonna pre-procure during this process.
Great.
There's also bid packages in here, like the pipeline. Pipeline doesn't really, we don't need a whole lot of like, there's not a lot of environmental review, there's not a whole lot of, it's just a pipe underground. Of course, we'll still, you know, it is in the EIR, it is, the cultural department has been discussed already with the Indians on digging up the street, if we find anything, then we have to, you know, go through that whole process.
That's the getting from here to division,
From here over division, yes.
but only sections because Jerry's pipe is gonna serve a major run, right? Or are we not doing that anymore?
Jerry's pipe.
He had a water line that wasn't being used. And so
So that's the one that goes to the Stickleback Pond. If there's any other pipe
so
that
now you're gonna have to put a new line all the way from here to the.
yes, and you can see in the back of the appendices, there's actually a different route being proposed in the back of the appendices. What appendix is that?
Okay. So that does prevent you.
The
Appendix D has the proposed. line.
proposed line segments. Right here, this one.
Now you are the, potentially in happy hunting ground.
It could be, most of that would be, you know, if we went this way, we go through CSD's Paradise, stay on the road and through CSD's Paradise line, if we go that route, then we're more likely to be in those kind of situations. Less likely if we stick on the street basis.
But we have provided these alignment alternatives to San Manuel for review and comment to be included in the draft EIR.
Do we have to worry about easements and all of that?
So, yeah, I mean, if we go with this route, we'd have to get an easement from CSD. Most of this is public right away, so we wouldn't have to do that. We just apply for permits through the county
Or the Caltrans.
or Caltrans, depending on the route that we're taking. So, and we're gonna, you know, the design team will evaluate the 3 different routes, both for economic and for, timeliness, and make some recommendations to us on those, but these have been identified as routes already. But the separate package for one of these routes will be chosen, and then we'll bid that out and put that, I think it's 3 miles of pipeline, I believe it is, or is it 6 miles? I think it's 3 miles of pipeline. That will put it, oh, no, excuse me, yeah, it's 19, yeah, a little over 3 miles.
Okay, and in each one I'm looking at, discharge point 1, discharge point 2. We have numbers, how can we tell you?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Larry.
A number, he was looking for, if there's a number on each thing to reference,
So we've
to
got
tell you, he's
this
looking
one.
like page 2.
Where?
No,
So
there's,
you have an overview and then you have 2 sheets that kind of blow up.
Blow it up
those 2 sections.
each section, yes,
Okay,
there's an overview and then that.
what's being called discharge point 1? Isn't that right next to the DOP's brand new well?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different discharge points being suggested, and it has to do with, you know, location has to do with, you know, whether it's next to the well, how high the water is gonna be, all those things, we have to meet those, so again, those pieces will be evaluated. Department of Drinking Water, was looking at all the different locations to determine whether, you know, that it would be influencing the well.
Right, but didn't we do a study about these wells?
And the impact, and so, 2 of the wells are being, he's drilling a well 8, I think well 8 right now, to get rid of 2 of the wells that were gonna be influenced by this project. He's already doing that now,
They're 8, not already.
not your 8, they're 8. I think it's 8 or 9,
Whatever number.
I think it's 9, maybe it's
Well,
9.
that's better. That'll-
Yeah, so, and so they're evaluating, I mean, and then we'll, depending on the route that we take, that'll be that will evaluate the location of discharge.
And when it says North Airport Corridor,
Yes,
I was just looking at that.
do we have to get permission of that?
If we went into airport property, we've had that discussion already with Ryan. We don't think we're probably not going to use that north airport corridor because they have all these FAA requirements. When we build on, airport
Yes.
property.
They have a gas line on the north side of the airport, so we can't use most of the airport.
But you could use where the gas line falls, like go next to it or something.
We can build, well, so there's one that goes down, Meadow Lane.
I see that. right.
That's the one that we were gonna, and again, that's the other one that we're evaluating. But we're gonna ultimately pick a route, but that's the alternative, but the one that's going north airport corridor, we wanted to include in the EIR, that's why this was created, just in case something happens and it turns out that we can go down there. When they actually pull the records for all the different, utilities in the area, this may turn out to be the best route or the most financially feasible route. We can go down the side or something to that effect.
Do they chunk out the entire strip at the same time, or do they do it in pieces? Or will it just?
No, they lay about 300 feet a day.
Okay,
That's what they lay down about 300 feet a day when they put that pipe
So
up.
we'll only accept 300 feet of people every day.
that's what I was thinking.
That's what they're supposed to do. You know, they saw cut, come in, remove 300 feet, put it in, close it back up, remove the next 300 feet, and just keep going down.
Okay.
But I mean, if everything goes right, they shouldn't disrupt the sewer or the water in this scenario.
And it would include like repaving, or it would just basically bring it back.
Yeah, everything will go, the package, when it goes out, the bid package will go out with installing the pipelines with, valving, everything that we need to shut it all off. Locations, the whole 9 yards, put it back together, so, there'll be a T-cut that will be proposed for all of the different locations and based on, whether it's Caltrans or county standards.
And for each of these bid packages, we have deliverables, so it lists, every,
Yeah, if you look underneath
when we have to review
page
it. we have
16,
to
it tells you basically all the details about what's gonna be included,
In those design.
deliverables, and each of the different, kickoff meetings
And so now you will have created another obligation for maintenance. That means more people.
you mean with the pipeline? The pipeline, this entire project's already included. All of the people needed for maintenance, but yeah, there's a PVC pipeline, a 12-inch PVC pipeline that we put in. I don't know what kind of maintenance you're really talking about, well, maybe valve exercising occasionally, that's really probably it, otherwise what is it in there, 100 years? PVC, I would imagine. Until they find out that PVC causes some other
Another form of cancer.
form of cancer or something else, and then we're going around and replacing the, just like we did with the, what was that material?
The dark orange line seems
Yeah,
to be less impactful than going through all those neighborhoods to the south.
yeah, the dark orange route itself is obviously
Then
goes down public roads.
do you anticipate, you get the water to across the division, that's your first step. Now it's in the marsh
Yes,
and it has become part of the lake.
yes,
It would seem like that will start percolating the soil. And so migration wise, when do you think the water from there will make it stable?
oh, it won't take long, I mean, that entire, I don't remember how many acres.
Because if it's a dry, things are dry, it would seem like it would take.
But
a
you
while.
remember, Stanfield Marsh has got a clay bottom,
Yeah, I just,
right? That's why they
there's
created
a
the
trade
original.
off of it's trickling over there.
Yeah, there's some, but the majority of it is not that way, majority of it is gonna just keep going. And go into the lake. It's just gonna biofilter, through the grasses and the topsoil and then into the lake.
I'm thinking in terms of loss,
You're gonna have
disappearance,
some evaporation loss and some of that other kind of loss.
because I noticed the discharge point 2 is further out,
Yeah,
but
but, again, we, the regional board will probably require us to do some sort of study on.
To be sure it's not ending up in the drinking well.
That's-
Well, no, that's already been done, that piece with BBW. So we already did that part. It is really gonna be, biofiltering, that kind of stuff. We would imagine, we anticipate it's in the scope of work, for number 5, I think it was in the scope of work, number 5, to include that piece.
But in their question about, the water and the fish, okay, we can drink it. And it's okay, but that's what I heard in some of the presentations is. They're concerned about the impact to the lake and to the fish because what we drink versus what it does to their environment.
That's a piece of the puzzle, but the real deal,
So that's,
so it's actually direct on use.
Yeah.
It's really the wetland use. It has, the habitat is a thing. But the real thing is actually protecting the direct land use. That's the regional board's charge, is to protect that direct land use. Direct land use is basically body contact lighting and beams.
and so if you're pumping what I call the green water out of the lake, up to the top, you put it in Sand Canyon.
Biofilters through,
I was gonna say it's the.
it takes 9 months for it to go from the spreading ground down to DWP's level. 9 months.
In our lifetime, do you anticipate that we will plug that up with the green stuff?
No. No, the water quality coming out of the lake is pretty high.
And it could even be, you'll find it has more capacity than 500 acre feet. Or less.
We could find out that it has more or less. Remember, because there's only certain parts of the year. Here's the thing, I remember the study was looking at like April through, I'm gonna say September or something, August, right? That was the study, but sometimes in April, the snow is gone already and we'd be able to pump up there in March. Sometimes it doesn't, we don't see any snow or it doesn't freeze until October, so there might be, several months on either end that we would be able to continue to pump water in there.
Then who makes the decision of how that water gets to the CSD system?
That would be DWP, there'll be an agreement between DWP and CSD.
Okay. There's one proposal that it won't be wheeled from there into the system. But there'll be a line across.
There is already a connection.
And like where one side of the street is DWP, the other side is CSD. It's 2 straws in the same. And they're proposing them to pump it from here to there. Well. That's not new water for us at that rate.
Right.
So that's what I'm anticipating is the who next to query about this. Okay, so this is more reading.
This is more
He wants to go
light
through.
reading for you. We can go through it or you can light read it on your own. And if you have any comments, please feel free. We're gonna be out in probably, I'm thinking probably about 2 to 3 weeks. We're gonna be out with this, going to, out to the public.
Any crude notes of things to really focus on?
I don't, honestly and truly, aside from aside from the fact that, the big thing I wanted to point out is that we're gonna bid packages, that's how we're gonna meet that September date, and keep our construction timeline. That's the important part. And the important part for the design team is the fact that you're gonna be given a project, be told that you have to meet the end date of construction to be done by spring of 27,
Barring acts of God.
barring acts of God. So to make that happen, your design team will have to form, you'll probably, I'm assuming that we'll see 12 to 14 months of the big picture design. Overall, that's how long it will take them to do the entire package, but which will include the sub packages that we've already awarded specific equipment to individual companies. And that will be included in the design team's bid package, that this equipment is shaped like that, look like this, and you need to install this. That's how we think we can include this. Anything else you think of?
Yes, so this particular RFP is for design and construction phase services.
Right.
The big piece to note, is that this is really for the design services, and then we will negotiate the construction phase services at a later date.
Right.
And that's indicated in here, so you'll see that there's appendix A, which is the scope of work. Appendix B are the requirements for the construction phase services that we're anticipating. But those details are gonna be hashed out a little bit later. The next thing to note is there's some yellow highlighted information on here for dates. So we haven't filled those in yet because we need the date that we're gonna release it, and then we work, from that date forward. There's another table in here, I'm sorry, backwards. Another table in here for a schedule. We're expecting the proposers to give us those dates to meet that spring 27 requirement.
And the support, by the way, just to go back to the support, the construction support we're talking about. You can't, until you know exactly what the design looks like. You can't really propose on construction support unless you gave them, 500 hours for this or 600 hours for that. It's very difficult for a consultant. So we know what design team they're proposing and the support team they're proposing, that's all, and their qualification. That's all we're really interested in at this point, that they will, letting them know that they need to provide this construction support, but that it will be negotiated at a later date.
Do we have any idea how many we might actually get in reply to this consultant wise?
We don't,
There's some
Are there-
interest of people calling, asking
Good.
when this is going to be going out,
Okay.
but, we don't have a list or anything, but we will publish it as many places as we can, like our regular bid
I'm just curious if you
processes.
think there's only one person out there or what
There's some
consultant.
design
or if there's
firms out
yeah, like, they're interested in, matter of fact, Rick mentioned one to me that he met at the League of California Cities.
Okay.
I heard, like for me, I'm hopeful that we get WSC, that they're the best
Yeah.
most qualified, proposer on the project, because I hate to change horses, I really do.
Yeah,
But that doesn't mean that we won't, obviously, we're going to evaluate the proposal based on qualifications, that's what it starts with. Price, I think, is,
Price is a sealed
The
bid,
bid,
separate
so
from the
separate.
evaluation.
so we evaluate the qualifications and their methods to deliver the project on time.
Well,
And,
WSC has a track record with you, so
yeah,
you
so
know
it's,
that, and the other one's kind of become a.
yeah, like, what do you, but again, if you've had similar projects.
Do they give you references so that you?
Yes,
can-
there's a whole list of what the requirements are, the age limit, not including the construction based services or some of the information required in the other.
So you can call past customers to say,
We will.
Oh, we will.
it looked great until,
When you figure this is like a roughly $4 million design service that we're looking for.
and you don't anticipate a drought that COVID caused or some other things, like trying to find well drillers. For this one, it was like everybody in the world seemed to be asking for well drillers, and so we got pushed off progressively further and further. This is new construction, new fresh meat, and they're all out there circling.
I think the design services is still
They need something to work on.
well, I mean, yeah, we don't know that because so far, all the engineering companies are very busy still.
Hmm.
So do we know how many proposals we're gonna get? We don't, but we know we're gonna get one for sure, right? And so, and we're required by federal law. Originally we were thinking, okay, can we just just award it to WSC? But because of the grant, we can't just do it that way. So we have to go this process and evaluate it and give it a fair shake to see if we can get other people to vote on it. If the most qualified bidders for the project. I don't really know how many we're gonna get, but we're gonna give it a go and see what happens.
Then it becomes trying to find a contractor.
Well, that's a whole nother, that's a whole
That's
nother issue.
another.
But when you're talking about a $71 million project, you're going to start to attract people with, that's a real project. It's not like, oh, I've got $100,000 roof. 130,
I had a feeling.
yeah.
So another thing is, Larry, you were asking about permits. There's a whole list of permits that BARWA is responsible for, not the permits that the other agencies are responsible.
So
So
we,
it goes all the way up to Stanfield Marsh. And then we do have the sample, professional services contract that BB&K provided, in there, so they know what the terms and conditions are, and what kind of insurance limits it's gonna be.
you can see the list back here of all the different requirements in here.
Spelled out too.
And so that list, and some are the consultant will have to support us from getting, others they'll have to get themselves. So let's just say like
Well, they have to show us that they got it.
Yes.
yeah, they have to, well, they have to get the permit and then what happens, or, apply on our behalf. Right, they'll have to get the permit on our behalf, right, because, all the permits are issued to BARWA or the contractor. That makes sense. It's page 23 of 30.
So there's a few of the attachments for the sample agreement that aren't in there yet. Part of that is that we need their proposal back in order to finish it. And then, we need to get the information back from, our consultants or attorney for the federal requirement portion.
And these people aren't gonna be surprised by having to provide a, archaeologist and a cultural, whatever.
No,
It
they,
should not be.
yeah, they have geotechnical engineers, they work with a team already, and so none of this should be startling.
Any surprise. Hmm.
I'm very impressed. It's nice. It looks great.
Yeah.
Comprehensive,
We're,
very detailed and just very well thought out. So,
yeah, so
Great job.
we're on it and we're working forward and that's where we're at.
And you say the reverse osmosis is a known lead time simply because they have to be manufactured or because everybody wants one right now?
No, it's more like, the pieces of equipment that they're more detailed, more specialized, so those pieces of equipment have to come from, whether it's coming from Israel or it's coming from another place. We wanna make sure that, we're not behind the 8 ball waiting for that piece of equipment. Like city of, I don't know, what was it, Highland was waiting for 2 valves to start their equipment, 2 24-inch valves.
how long did it take?
I don't know if they've gotten yet.
Precision engineering in Germany or bronze?
Or
Both?
just wait, 6, I mean, if you think about it, we're waiting 56 weeks for a generator. Right, 56 weeks for a generator. I mean, that's a big generator, I get it, but it's still like that kind of a lead time on equipment would hurt us if we didn't preempt it and get in front of it.
Well, and again, are they falling back on the excuse of, supply chain issues? Or is it simply that everybody's so busy that that's how long it's gonna take to build one?
I think it's a little bit of both. And I think they're, short personnel to build stuff and, the short, pieces of equipment, some of these are coming from foreign countries. I mean, you got a mixture of different things that are happening. And some people might be just, what do they call, slowing it down so that way they can charge more. They might be doing some of that.
No.
Somebody did that. Now. Slow walking it, isn't that
Is that the
the
term?
term? Slow walking it,
You're still complying, but you're not obstructing.
that's right, you're slow walking it. So, I don't know if they're slow walking it, but
Do you have any other questions?
And this is due back, we don't know yet.
this is due back not to us, but to them. If you have comments, feel free. And we're probably, like I said, we're gonna be floating it out there in the next, say, 2 to 3 weeks.
Right,
That's
so
what we-
once we know that we are gonna issue it, then that whole timeline gets filled in. And that's why there's those yellow highlighted dates and when it's due. We don't know when it's gonna be released, the exact date. And so we do have a procurement timeline that we follow for these, so all those dates will be filled in once we know that release.
Yeah, and so if you, over the next week, if we got some time to review it, we're not expecting you guys to come up with a lot of things that you wanna change, but we're we were happy to take any input that you got.
No, I'll definitely read through it and let you know. Just on a quick glance, it looks amazing. So,
Yeah, there's,
very well.
and, you know, again, it's a draft because, we've both been through it several times, but we just need to keep, flushing it out.
You had John go through it too, or does he get involved in these?
He'll sometimes read things over at the end just because he's more of a kind of grammar guy that likes to pick up that kind of stuff. She's missed something. I'm not the grammar guy, that's for sure. I'm the nuts and bolts, and, oh, well, we're gonna do it this way, we're gonna do it that way, package break up, those kind of things, where I expect to see things. But Reggie might figure it.
For us, who are not producing water. Like this silly well. That needs phosphorus and stainless steel. Because it's just water, it's not manganese water.
We're gonna add, no, this is not that way, we're gonna add any minerals back to the water after the RO that we need to make sure that we don't need any specialized. It's gonna be like PVC, that kind of stuff, where we're, and
Eat it up.
not eating up that kind of stuff, because we're going to make sure that we're injecting minerals back in. And I wasn't sure, is that manganese heavy again, or? You had a problem over here with manganese
It
originally,
ate
right?
the casing of the well
Yeah,
and it ate brush,
so now you're over here with bronze,
stainless
stains,
and phosphor, I believe is what they said.
yeah, bronze would be my normal.
Nice water,
that kind of
but
stuff.
not very nice water.
It's. Well, they probably should have gotten an idea of the creek as well.
Yeah.
But engineering decisions are what they are. They're made by what they are, just like, putting ice dam on the entire city roof. That's just, say how that kind of design is.
How many?
Why would you do that?
Didn't end up on ice dam, did you? So there,
Are you all good?
yeah.
Okay, we will adjourn this meeting at 11:53.
Thank you.